the sun, our administration has scanned the digital talent and innovation ecosystem and started mapping an array of actors. The aim of this actor mapping is to identify and classify players in the information and communication technology value chain for the purpose of formalizing of a collaboration strategy. We realize that we cannot do it alone. And I think that is what the speakers in the morning were stressing, especially His Excellency the Governor, that this is a journey that you cannot walk alone. To date, the Nairobi City County Government has identified leading actors in the talent and innovation value chain, including startups, venture capitalists, and private equity funds with potential to finance, scale, and commercialize innovations by our youth in the digital innovation space. Beyond sector value chain mapping, we are in the process of structuring assets and resources that would help in identifying and consolidating a critical mass of youthful digital innovators to support the enhancement of service delivery by our county government. As a department responsible for public service, we are keen to collaborate with all incubators of talent and innovation, especially those that target service delivery improvement, including effectiveness, efficiency to the users. The world over, governments are able to attract and retain digital talent will be better. Governments that are able to attract and retain digital talent will be better equipped to address challenges of the 21st century. In the context, our country's efforts places us on the path to deliver better services to citizens, create more jobs, and grow the economy. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, I invite you into an outline of the efforts and interventions undertaken by the Nairobi City County towards enablers for the digital talent and innovation value chain. Primarily, our interventions have included creation of culture of innovation, provision of access to ICT and digital resources, building of sector relationships, transparency and accountability. This stage allows me to report and share with you that we have an aging workforce, because you remember before devolution, we were the Kanjo. So you all remember how Kanjo behaved. But now with the devolution, we took all the employees from the county council. And so we have an aging workforce that probably some of them are exiting, but it also means that our IT is not as good. So that is why the collaboration is very important for us. In efforts at provision of access to resources, the County Government of Nairobi and County Executive Committee, His Excellency the Governor and County Executive Committee, the County Government is gradually but incrementally creating an environment where county staff feel comfortable taking risks and trying new things. They are being encouraged. Remember, we have created a department that deals with that. So there's a concerted effort to have our people move towards digitalization. In efforts at provision of access to resources, the County Government of Nairobi is resourcing staff on digital skills through establishment of e-learning resource center and digital skills capacity building in partnership with the International Computer Driving License Africa, among others. Through partnership with the private sectors, academia, and the non-profit sector, Nairobi County is building relationships to access to digital talent through exchange programs, peer learning, and benchmarking programs, among others. Additionally, in fostering transparency and accountability, Nairobi City County seeks to increasingly be transparent about county operations and accountability to the public through initiatives such as My Nairobi app. This will help build trust with all partners and encourage them to work with the county. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, as a county government, we believe that by creating more collaborative environment for the incubation, growth, and scaling of digital talent and innovation, we will ultimately improve service delivery to Nairobians and spur socioeconomic development. I therefore wish to affirm the county government's commitment and readiness to work with all actors at enhancing the economic and social inclusion of our youth in the digital and innovation enterprise. With these few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Asanteni.
I've never been an MC in a government event, so maybe that's why I tripped and almost fell. But the county government of Nairobi has made a commitment to working together with the players and ensuring that we walk this journey together. The governor today made a comment that Nairobi is the beating heart of innovation, not just in Kenya, but in Africa. And he also iterated that we need to work together, both the industry, the government, and the academia. And because of that, we are going to have a panel discussion between the academia and the industry. So allow me to welcome Dr. Njeri from Technical University of Kenya, Alan Onganga, ameniambia pronounce my name correctly, from Moringa School, and Yvonne Derito from Safaricom. I will allow them to introduce themselves and explain why they are the right people to be in this panel. Oh, nimeambiwa I forgot to introduce myself. So, my name is Naisenya Mungai. I'm the Digital Delivery Lead at Safaricom. I also lead the Safaricom engineering community, and I will be moderating this lovely panel today. Dr. Njeri, you can start.
My name is Njeri Ngaruya. I lecture at TUK. Yeah, and it's really nice to just have you guys here. And I hope you guys know what TUK is. Do you know TUK? It's so unfortunate that we have to say former Kenya Poly. Yeah. Anything else that you want me to say?
The title doctor. I know you studied engineering. So how did you come up? What did you study for you to become a doctor?
Okay. Okay. Let me a bit correct. Nice. Yes, it's actually a part of STEM. I'm actually in information systems. So doing my undergrad, I started with the IT in distributed systems, then came and did my master's in computer science, and then cutting your niche. Apparently, you get to narrow it when you actually like now do your PhD. So for me, I cut my niche with ICT4D. So that is ICT4 development, and I like putting the word S at the end. That is ICT4 development and sustainability. Yes, so that's my growth pattern from undergrad all the way to the PhD journey.
Nice.
Yes.
Alan?
Yes, Naisenya.
Introduce yourself and why you're in this panel.
Thank you. So my name is Alan Onganga. Yeah, the apostrophes in my name are very crucial. I lead business development and outcomes at Moringa School, where I've been for the last 3 years and 8 months now. It's been a wonderful experience. We work with young people to impart digital skills and prepare them for the world of work. So I guess that's why I am here. I'm not a doctor yet. That's still work in the process. Growing up, I remember I wanted to study all the way to PhD level. So Dr. is sitting on my right here is suddenly giving me unnecessary pressure. But yeah, today we are not here to talk about that. Thank you.
Alan, please feel the pressure. We want the doctor before your name. Yvonne?
Yes. So I'm Yvonne Derito. I head the digital engineering team at Safaricom. So for us, we build solutions, and not just build, but build the right solution that add value to our customers, and also just charting the digital transformation for the organization. So I think I'm also not a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor when I was growing up, but I changed my path along the way to technology.
Okay, thank you so much, Yvonne. The guys, the audience, how many of you are students? By raising your hand, so that we know whether this panel will make sense. How many are founders and CEOs, as well as being students? Mary Yoniwongo. Mary and Eneth, that is a lie. We see you. So, the first question to the panel, obviously Kenya is the home of innovation. Hello, M-Pesa. And we are basically interconnected with the global market. So, as a country, and specifically as Nairobi County, how do we retain and attract top talents from across the world while still nurturing homegrown tech talent in Kenya? Alan, unaangaliwa, inasemekana Moringa ndo mnafanya hiyo kazi.
That's a tough one. But I want to look at it from two angles. Number one, education. And the second one would be actually three angles. So we have education, we have the business environment, and then we have the political environment. So beginning with the education, I think it's all about investing in the right curriculum. That would attract, experts who would be willing to come in, and participate and experience what Kenya has to offer. I think for quite a long time, there's been an imbalance that what we see as stories of Africans struggling to get into Europe or to, Western communities to access quality education, but I believe we have the capacity, within the continent to design, develop, and distribute world-class curriculum. So I believe with government, more government, private sector partnership, it is possible to, build world-class curriculum that can attract, talent. And so when you think about, some of the initiatives that probably would help attract such international talent. We're talking about scholarships, educational grants, research grants. She would know because she's, she's in academia. And these things have been done elsewhere, right? And so when you think about the human potential, where there is a will, there's a way. So I think more conversations need to happen about making Kenya, and not just Kenya, but elsewhere in Africa, elsewhere in the continent, a go-to destination when you think about, world-class education. The second one is the business environment. So when you think about the business environment, it is about, creating an enabling environment for external investors to want to set up shop here. And the ripple effect of that is that, more opportunities, for employment would definitely accrue. And the most important thing would be to, for government to make sure that even as foreign multinational, even foreign startups set up shop, that they identify and work with understudies to upskill and accelerate local talent. And, that way there's mutual exchange, of value. The last one I talked about was the political environment, and I think generally a political environment that is devoid of things like maandamanos would definitely attract more international talent. And I think when I look at international talent, I'm not just thinking about foreigners, but I'm also thinking about Kenyans who maybe migrated and acquired world-class or international skills, international education, coming back to set up shop here and, give back and, perpetuate the, culture of self-propagation and development.
Thank you so much, Alan. Yvonne, on the same question, I know Safaricom is currently very passionate about building in Kenya, by Kenyans, for the world. So how is Safaricom currently working on necessarily retaining the tech talent, not just international, but local as well?
I think the key thing is competitive environment. What, as an individual, I'd want and what would retain me is feeling I'm doing the real work. I'm doing meaningful work. If it's in engineering, I'm doing the real engineering, because that's what makes people move to other organizations or even outside the country, because I feel I'm not doing the right tech, or I'm not in the right, I'm not being exposed to where the industry trends are moving, or that's real in-depth tech. So it's just building that technology capabilities, or even how we evangelize what we are doing as well. And that's why we have now this major drive of build by Kenyan for Kenyans, because we understand what our customers need, or even the citizens in general, and now being able to build solutions that work for them, add value for them, but now also how do we engage even with the academia, different universities, that these opportunities are available, this technology is available, and even working now, partnering with different industry players, different universities, to just collaborate and bring that environment that you can build your technical or your engineering or your HR career here in that world-class environment as well. I think that is one thing that will really retain our talent and even grow what we have.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Maybe I can add on something?
Yes.
Also, there's, just recently, I just saw some stats, 2021 to 2022, actually showing that an increase of 30% on exports, on exports, and only 15% on import. What does that tell us? Question is, can you be able to do what Gearbox and Raspberry Pi are actually doing? As in, can you be able to manufacture some of these things in Kenya? Do we have the brains? Unfortunately, I was not here in the morning, but considering that the governor himself acknowledges that the cash crop of Nairobians is actually our brain, that tells a lot. So question is, what are we doing? When you look at the export bit of it, and maybe this is something that maybe you can actually think about us, especially like innovators, go and check, what is this being exported? No, is it exported? Yes. What is this? No, imported, sorry. What is this that we're actually importing all this time? Do you have the skills? Do you have the capacity to actually be able to build it ourselves? And it's possible you actually find that there is. And maybe that's going to actually be your niche, to actually be able to actually innovate, and be able to actually be in that particular platform that Naisenya just told you. If you're not a CEO, you're not a founder, you actually be part of it. Yeah.
And Joki, just to add to what Alan had mentioned on education and specifically the research grant, what can you add to what he had mentioned?
Honestly speaking, there are a lot of research grants going around. There is only one caveat, and this is a bit of where we look at what is the process that is needed for us to fill that proposal. So we have research grants all over, many of them. As in, right now, I've actually been looking at some of them, even when I sit down there, I was just looking at some of them. And the reason why there are many of these is because these particular industries or these particular people, lack of a better word, they've actually seen that there's a niche in an African market. Yeah, I'm actually seeing tomorrow. I think I'm actually coming in to actually hear more of what of WC, to actually just hear why they're actually in Kenya. Yeah. So what are these people seeing outside there that we are not seeing? Yeah. So some of these things apparently, when you're actually like getting these research grants, it's a process. They actually ask for a lot of things. The question is, do you have the perseverance of actually being able to actually apply for them? And also having the patience of us actually even waiting to actually like get to know if you actually got it or not. And most of the time, each and every time I should actually see these research grants, don't think that you can actually work in silos. What is really happening nowadays is that you'll find that multidisciplinary teams work better. So question is, you as an engineer, have you looked for someone, have you actually like sat down with the same concept that you have? Have you engaged someone in arts? Have you engaged someone in medicine? Just recently, I saw, through research, I saw in a theater, a kid is actually being operated on and actually gaming. That's cool, right? Yeah? As in like, so that means what you're just doing is just taking away the anxiety of the kid while you're actually just doing an operation on this child. So the child is actually just lying, and on top there, they're actually like just having the game console and actually like just playing it off, yeah? So all this, do you think an engineer would have thought of that, or someone in medicine would have thought about gaming in a theater? So that's the reason why you're always being told, don't live in a silo, don't say, I am an engineer, and the only people that I can actually converse with are only engineers. These research grants actually come out, and they need to actually have a unique bit of it. And this is now where I actually talk about creativity, and creativity might not be in you alone. Might actually even be people at times that tunadharau, guys in arts know a lot. Okay? Do not, especially the people in STEM. I am saying that because I have seen it. People in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, we see ourselves as we are the cream de la cream of education. Trust you me. That's the reason why I prefer calling it STEAM. I add the A in there and I add the M at the very end. So I include science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, and medicine. Thank you.
Wow. Nimesikia pressure kidogo. So, when Alan was speaking, he spoke about the political, the business environment, and Anonymous Sudan happened, was it last week? Yeah, Anonymous Sudan happened last week. So, cybersecurity and data privacy are currently one of the critical concerns in technology. So how can the industry and academia actually partner to ensure that we are building robust security measures and actually building a culture of integrity in how we manage our data, not just in university, but in the industry as well?
That's really interesting, as in like when you look at what's going on, there are issues that make the academia be in the spotlight. And apparently people have their own theories out there saying that, oh, these guys are still residing in Kenya, whatever it is. We've been attacked. So question is, people in cybersecurity, people in tech, what are you learning from this? And what can you do about it? So this is now where, at times, you might not be able to actually have that capacity and actually want big other companies to actually come in and actually partner with institutions so you can actually be able to actually like now, first of all, teach the younger generation that even when they're actually coming out and actually coming to work, they're able to like combat some of these things or even smell them from a mile, okay? So I think this is a conversation that needs to actually like continue. Let the industry and the academia get to know where do they actually come and where do they actually merge. These are real life problems. Real life problems need real life solutions, and not only just solutions, but they need sustainable solutions. Are we going to be attacked again by Anonymous Sudan? Do we think that whatever has actually been put in place is actually solved the whole issue? Trust you me, we are humans. The next, you're actually going to hear something else. Because what I usually say is that it's humans who build this, and trust you me, there's another human who's really trying as much as possible to actually like put it down. So industry and academia need to constantly be in the space of curriculum development. How do we develop? Like now for cybersecurity, are we as academia, we're always being attacked and told, oh, you guys, you're still using the old manuals. But remember, each and every time someone says that, these are some of the things that also there are certifications for. Yeah? Huawei would actually offer some of these things. I'm not really sure if Huawei is one of the sponsors. So I'm not here to, yeah? Moringa, let me just talk about Moringa. Moringa are doing some really, really awesome job. Yeah? And I'm really glad that I actually saw in May this year, the county government and Moringa, you actually signed a deal on actually upskilling, because there's a lot. The government is talking about 250,000 jobs. Germany giving 250,000 remote jobs. Yeah. So question is, how do you upskill? Sasa kama wewe, you've actually done maybe something like you've done something like in engineering. Question is, how do you upskill to actually make sure that you're actually part of these particular jobs are actually coming over? So question is also something else, is academia and industry actually having these real talks, especially when it comes to curriculum development? So you can actually say we're actually doing well when it comes to certifications, but we are a bit lagging when it comes to coursework. Because you see now the coursework bit of it has to go through, it's actually a bureaucratic process, has to go through queue. Yeah? And before it's actually, and you know technology, before it's, they give a nod to it, we've already moved to something else. So it's going to take some time. But also something else I usually tell students is that as much as we're looking at the collaboration between industry and academia, question is, what are you doing in your free time? Like now for anonymous cybersecurity, question is, what have you learned about it? Have you checked it out? There are a lot of free courses out there. When you look at, it's called Udemy, when you look at Coursera, all this, actually offering some of these courses for free, and at times some of these courses at a very low cost. You can see me behind the tent, I tell you at times how you can actually do some courses very fast, and it's a $49 course as long as you have time. Okay, yeah. So industry and academia needs to actually have these vital talks.
Wanauliza tent ya blue ama ya green? Tent ya orange.
I think I agree with you on the collaboration between industry and academia, and also on the area of research. I know a lot of university students also do their theses, their projects. Those are opportunities as well, where as industry we can not really influence, but even suggest some of the industry problems that we see, especially in either cybersec area. And then these can be some of the topics that the students will pick and do research on. And then we pick that as an industry and implement or engage more in terms of looking at solutions for such a problem. So that area of research, because in academia there are a lot of papers that come out, but where can industry come in and pick some of these papers, either to implement or collaborate more and look for solutions in some of these fields as well.
Yes.
Also something else that I am in an institution where I see brilliant projects. But the problem is these projects are actually shelved. That's the reason why you're always being told, once you do a brilliant project, how do you disseminate that information? Whatever you have you written a paper about it? Have you taken it out? Have you presented it in a conference? Have you taken it out to a journal? Yeah? So your work has to be hard. At least you can actually see a lot of industry and academic engagement, where you're seeing that an industry is actually going through an issue, and they actually now bring that issue to academia. And this now what actually happens is that a hackathon goes on. So people are actually being told, okay, this is the issue, give us a solution. Okay, that is really good. That is actually a very good point to actually start from, because now you can actually say, oh, now the industry and the academy, they're actually in sync. We've actually seen that Safaricom actually, guys, you're doing that. Yeah, we've actually seen that also with Microsoft. It's actually doing the same thing. So we need to actually see more of this happening, so you can actually say we're now in sync, as we actually now slowly move towards now where we can actually be able to even impact a curriculum. And yeah, so yeah, we're actually having some good talks. We're actually having some good lips. So it's not all lost. Yeah.
Alan?
Yeah, very quickly. So first of all, I want to maybe contradict Daktari here kidogo. If you are a student and you want to go far, you want to stand out, forget the free courses. Anything good has value, right? Anything good has value. You know, at Moringa School, we run a number of programs that can help accelerate you and position you properly, you know, for the job market, whether that's cyber security. You know, we recently launched AI-based courses, you know, artificial intelligence, both from beginner level to you know, decision-making level. If you want to do software engineering, you know, I guess Moringa School, you know, is the place to be. In terms of collaboration between industry and academia in addressing cyber security challenges, I think one of the most critical things to factor in is continuous professional development, you know, especially at the workplace. And I'm very happy, you know, we have local organizations such as Safaricom, who are very big, you know, on upskilling. Naisenya, I don't know whether I should say this, but you know, Naisenya is a product of Moringa School through the you know, Safaricom Digital Academy program. You know, and the most important thing, you know, to remember, you know, when it comes to digital academy is that the curriculum is relevant, it's practical, you know, so that when you're in tech, you actually have to build things. You have to solve problems. You know, so if it is cybersecurity, for instance, are you actually, you know, exploiting, you know, vulnerability? And of course, when it comes to hacking, there is ethical hacking, right, which has positive intentions. So I guess for young people who are getting into, you know, spaces like cybersec, you know, the potential when it comes to tech, you know, is limitless. You know, there's so much more you can do, but, you know, once you get into the world of work, you need to remember that continuous professional, you know, the culture of continuous learning will keep you refreshed, will keep you renewed, you know, and that you can constantly evolve and adapt to meet the emerging challenges, you know, within cyber security and cybercrime.
Thank you so much, Alan. If you're looking for anyone from Moringa School with software engineering skills, please reach out to me. Yvonne, don't look at me badly. Yvonne is my boss. So one of the key things that Dr. Njeri, Yvonne, Alan have actually talked about is how do we work on real life research issues in the academia. And I think the most important thing, as much as we've mentioned about the gaming when the kid was having the operation, Anonymous Sudan, how do we actually instill continuous learning maybe in areas like cybersecurity, we still have issues around that area like intellectual property, technology transfer. So to the three of you, how do you think we can actually combat such issues so that when guys in the university or in academia are working on their fifth year project, no one is going to borrow from the list from JKUAT. I'm not saying that's what I did when I was doing my undergrad in Moyuni, but how then do we combat some of the issues so that we are exporting more, as you've said, and not importing, and we are churning out actual solutions that can address challenges that we are facing in Kenya?
So maybe I can take that. I want to address this in the context of, you know, some of the initiatives we are doing at Moringa School. So at Moringa, we partner very closely with industry. Over the years, I think we've built a network of more than 760 employer partners. And these are industry partners who are not just recruiting from us, you know, but also providing us with technical problems that our students can work on as part of their projects. For us, this is very significant because it ensures that, one, our students are working on real case studies. They're working on real case scenarios that have relevance, and applicability within, the business environment. The second thing is that by collaborating with industry partners, students or alumni are able to get real-time feedback. So when we source, for instance, technical problem statements from the industry, we also constitute a technical bench that evaluates the projects and provide feedback. So students would basically go through, your software development life cycle, whether it's agile, and mostly we use agile methodology. And one of the most important things we've done to safeguard ideas, that students come up with is making sure that, all legal documents are in place. So if it's non-disclosure agreements, or if students are expected to work on, proprietary solutions as part of maybe a hackathon, then there are certain legal structures that we've put in place that are designed to not just protect the student, protect Moringa School, but also protect the employer. So when it comes to the issues of intellectual IPs, for instance, I think it is important to, guide, young people who really want to innovate. It is important to point them to the right, kind of like the right resources. For us, how we address that is by partnering with domain-specific experts. So if it's an incubation center, for instance, or a startup accelerator, then we know that they already have structures in place that can prepare, the young people to go through all the legal compliance, that needs to be done. And for us, that has really been instrumental, so much so that we've seen a growing uptake of, alumni who explore alternative career paths like entrepreneurship and gig work.
Thank you, Alan. Dr. Njeri?
You need, as a student, you need to be very, very cognizant of, especially the projects that you guys do. Let me just say, I'm not really sure if it's the same thing with Moringa, where coming up with an idea and you work it out through school, it's actually a joint what? You cannot say it's yours solely, but it's actually a joint thing of, like now for a case for Tukent and you as a student. So that means if it's an NDA to be signed actually between the two parties, not with any other person outside. So you as a student also need to actually get to know your worth, or either your value, we're actually giving out. So because remember, each and every time, even if I'm assisting you in your project, you have that great idea and you've actually looked it out and you're so sure it does not exist. So what we need to do is that have like now in universities, we have ethical bodies. So where you go to those departments, they're actually able to take you through the process of making sure that your work is actually like patentable. So then that's now how you're going to be introduced to the different bodies that to make sure that now you're able to solely enjoy your work for the rest, whatever years. So it's a patent. His patent is actually 20 years, yeah. If it's copyright, it's actually 50 years, right? 50 years, yeah, something like that. Okay. So you need to know, first of all, get to actually just search: does this work exist anywhere else? If it doesn't, trust you me, you've actually done a PhD, because a PhD is, you have to bring in new knowledge. Yeah. So if you think you're actually bringing in new knowledge, maybe talk to the university to scale you up to a PhD. Maybe I'm kidding. They can't do it. They can't do it here. Yeah, because that's practically new work that you've actually done. So what I'm actually saying is that do we have such minds in universities? Yes. But also these minds, as Alan has said, they need to be guided on how to actually make sure that these IPs are actually protected. Yeah? So you need to protect your knowledge. Yeah.
Yvonne?
I think much has been said, especially from the students, and how to protect the idea.
Yeah.
I know for most of the organizations, they have their own legal process with the NDAs and the likes, and that's what most of the organizations will follow. But I think what is critical is just that knowledge of, I have this idea, this is how I can protect my idea, even as I engage different partners to bring it to life, or when get sponsorships to build it. I think that's the critical part that we need to educate more guys, because I think that's what misses, and a lot of ideas either are picked by other people or get lost in the chains. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Alan, like I said when we started, everyone today in the audience, the 22-year-olds, I was really shocked, na Sesame Sea founder. Most of them were founders and CEOs. So I guess maybe when we were in university, we were never really encouraged to be entrepreneurs or to start our own companies. So for us, for most of us, my generation, I'm over 30, so my generation, most of us are employed. So how do we cultivate a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation in the academic institutions? Na usinichongoe. Naweza kuwa founder kesho.
Sawa, no pressure. It's always interesting for me when I see programs like entrepreneurship being offered in universities or colleges. And it's never been lost on me that quite a number of entrepreneurship lecturers have never run a business. But that was many years ago. Today, I think that argument might not hold. If not for the fact that times have changed, maybe because of the economic times, we all need an extra source of income. But having said that, I think entrepreneurship being run in colleges is actually very timely and relevant. And I want to talk about 3 specific issues, that would be ideal, to factor in when thinking about fostering a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation, not just within the academic halls, but also, out here in the industry. The 3 issues that I'll touch on will, include curriculum, and then we have work-integrated learning experiences, and community. So because academic institutions exist solely for the purpose of training, for me, I think it begins with having curriculum that is relevant, that is up to date and that feeds on the current issues, around innovation and entrepreneurship. And I think one of the most important things to factor in when academic institutions come up with the curriculum is ensuring that there's closer collaboration with industry, to get as much input as possible. Universities, colleges have actually excelled and built expertise around skills such as creativity and critical thinking. And these are very critical skills that an entrepreneur would require. But beyond that, I think closer collaboration in terms of bringing in industry experts to offer maybe guest lectures, is something that needs to be encouraged more. I'm sure it is happening, but maybe we need to make that a permanent feature in our academic halls. That, can we call Peter Ndegwa, for instance, to come and deliver guest lecture, to academic students, and I think the opportunity to provide practical industry insights in the halls of academic institutions, I think that would further help to bridge the gap between industry, and academia when it comes to curriculum design and, and curriculum delivery. The second point I talked about was work integrated learning experiences. And this really goes around fostering a collaboration between academia and industry to deliver experiential learning experiences. So when you think about hackathons, for instance, at Moringa School, what we've done, and I've already alluded to this, we partner very closely with industry in a number of ways. Number one, at Moringa School, we never just imagine a hackathon and think that, okay, maybe this will sell. We source our hackathon concepts from the industry. So whether that's very vertical specific, I know we've run hackathons around financial services, we've run hackathons around climate change, which is a very big conversation happening today. We've run hackathons around concepts such as education and so on and so forth. And the benefit of sourcing technical problem statements from industries that, again, as I said, students are able to work, on real life, case studies. We have other initiatives such as apprenticeships, internships that are designed to help, graduates or students, build and develop a culture of innovation. But even such things that may appear mundane, such as celebrating, innovation within academic halls and institutions of higher learning, I think those things can help to further propel and foster a culture of innovation within academic institutions. The final thing is around community. I think institutions of higher learning, and today I see a lot more of that, than when I was, at the university, that universities, colleges, actually building communities, not just for students, but also for faculty. But for students, I think it's even more important, that if they're innovating, they're also joining and collaborating, with the right communities, tech communities. The reason why I think that is important, is that communities help to perpetuate learning, especially peer-based learning, which is very critical. It's much easier for me maybe to bounce off ideas, my peers, than it is maybe to approach, people that I consider to be above me. We could also really help to promote events such as pitch fests. I think funding is one of the biggest pain points for local startups that want to set up, especially at the seed stage. And academia can really use their network to attract, set up, funding programs that can support, students, that are innovating or setting up their enterprises even while still in campus. So one of the things we do at Moringa School, as part of our hackathon initiatives is, we normally try to negotiate with all participating organizations to make commitments. So whether that's either buying the product or offering internships, or funding, the program so that the innovators can scale. And I think the more we see academia doing that, the more we can, continue to build our entrepreneurial landscape in the country.
Thank you so much, Alan. Yvonne has something to add.
As just thinking, tapping into the alumni also in the institutions, whether it's in the university or colleges, it's actually very critical because these are the people in the industry, and they've been. It's easier to associate with somebody who's been there. So they're able to tell you, this is my story, this is how I moved and chartered into this area. And it's critical as you move. I remember when I was looking for internship, there's a lady who was a friend of my mom, a HR executive. And she asked me, do you know contacts of the people who are a year ahead of you, 2 years ahead of you? What are they doing? Where are they? Because it also helps you know where to navigate, which ideas. If I want to move into this space, I know somebody who can either mentor me or coach me into that space. So also just knowing the people ahead of you is also critical when you're in the space, and also maybe a challenge to now us as alumni, do we go back and coach or mentor where we've been? Yeah.
Watu wa JKUAT, Yvonne it's an open call that she will come for mentorship at JKUAT University as part of her CSR. So before I ask Yvonne the question, I have something for the audience. Our CHRO normally tells us a story. The story is, you have two drivers. Driver moja ni driver wa country bus. Apply route ya Kangemi to Tao every day. Amefanya your job for 20 years. And then you have a driver, an Uber driver. We all know Uber drivers, one trip unaenda Kangemi, another trip unapata mtu anaenda JKIA, another trip unataka umepata mtu anaenda wapi? Ruiru. Another time ameenda wapi? Narok. So if you are recruiting someone with experience, mse wa Uber amefanya kazi 2 years. Mse wa country bus amefanya kazi for 20 years. If you're recruiting, who would you recruit? Mse wa Uber ama mse wa country bus? Mse wa Uber? Why? Ene, hakuna kitu inaitwa hivi. More experience in terms of routes, right? Yes. So the same case applies to the tech industry. For me, I studied electrical and telecommunications engineering at Moi University. I worked as a network engineer. And then, as Alan mentioned, we had Digital Academy. We were practically told, Mary, I'm not looking at you, but Mary alituambia, as Safaricom is transitioning into a technology company, nyinyi na hiyo knowledge yenu ya network, you will not be fit for the industry. So they actually started Digital Academy to upskill on relevant digital skill sets. So we went to the academy. I studied software engineering. So, mumesikia electrical engineering, network engineer, software engineer, right? And then, akina Yvonne wakaanza department inaitwa digital engineering. They wanted someone to do digital delivery, which is basically an intersection between engineering and HR. So, sasa nimetoka software engineering, nikaenda HR. So, even now that you guys are running by you guys hata mimi niko kwa hiyo part. Now that you guys are transitioning to become a technology company, literally for engineers and to actually succeed in the world of engineering, you need to be T-shaped, sometimes E-shaped. So how can the academia and industry facilitate lifelong learning initiative to ensure that when you need to reskill or upskill, there are places you can go and learn, or there are actually programs that we can run both as industry and academia to ensure we have the right talent, considering now tulikuwa na 10 digital skill sets enye at the moment I feel like it's becoming irrelevant since tunaanza vitu za digital twin, generative AI, all those things. So if things keep changing so rapidly, how do we ensure that we are learning and upskilling as constantly as possible?
I think the technology world or even engineering world is a very interesting world because it's always evolving. Today is AI, tomorrow there'll be something else. So there's always that need to either reskill or upskill yourself continuously, because today how we were building solutions when we were in school, I think my time we were doing Pascal. So vitu sahi watu walisahau.
Yvonne uko na miaka ngapi?
Vingi sana. So it's important to keep learning, and because technology will change, the trends will change, more efficient way of doing things are coming up. So one of the key things is first the personal drive, because you'll need that self-initiative to learn. You'll not go to school every time. There are those that you need the in-class personal training, but there are also what we were mentioning, online courses that are available that you can also upskill on by yourself. But other than that, I think there's also the opportunity between our academia and the industry as well. I think we've mentioned quite a bit in terms of the curriculum development. How do we keep engaging in some of these specific topics where we can have even just a conference, just talk about specific thematic areas and how they're influencing industry, and also now how can we embed that into the curriculum so that as students are learning in those specific domains, they are aware of these new technologies that are also in the market. I think the other area is on the internships and work placements. You know, you get to understand a different view of how the industry is. When you go, you're interning in an organization, or even you shadow somebody in their day-to-day, you're able to appreciate the technology or even how they use. You know, sometimes we ask in school, how will I use this in the industry? Nitatumia hii mathematics.
Fourier series sana sana.
Yes, so being able to work with somebody or interning and being able to see them, how they're applying some of these technologies and the foundations we learn in school, because some you'll find the basic principles have not changed, but technology has advanced. But having that basic, that foundational knowledge helps you be adaptable, and you're able to adjust in any technology that comes in. I think also, like what Alan mentioned, communities. You know, a lot of organizations have formed communities. You have like Safaricom engineering community. You'll find Microsoft has an engineering community, Google the same. How do you participate in these events that are organized by the communities in the industry? And also as an industry, are we engaging universities? Do we go and hold an experiential day where they're able to learn these are the technologies that we are using? This is how you, as you're learning maybe computer science or engineering or food science, you know, how can you embed these learnings into your everyday work, and this is how the industry is actually using this. So working with the different communities just to first influence, not just the curriculum, but even their way of working, their thinking, you know, that design thinking you mentioned, into how I will apply this knowledge into the industry. And also, there are so many tech communities as well, not just the ones run by the organization, but you'll find on certain days there's a meetup for a specific theme. Like I know there's an RPA tech community, but can we have even those meetups in universities or hold a session in the university so that we're able to not just showcase, but even create that visibility. I remember when you're in school, you have very narrow scope of what is out there. Yeah. You only know specific careers of either people you've interacted with, and amekwambia I'm a network engineer, I'm this engineer. But when you're able to see and also understand there's so many, in my line of work, there are like 10 different skills or different things I can do, even with my degree. I think it helps to open the mind and to be able to know I need to upskill myself in this area because it will make me have that edge compared to my other graduates that we were in the same class with. Yeah. How will I differentiate myself by acquiring or upskilling in this specific area? I think that's a key thing that we need to see, because that's how you differentiate yourself. I know our HR, CHRO always tells, how are you creating yourself employable? So that I'm not job secure, but I'm employment secure, that I can get a job anywhere because of the skills I have built the right skills for the right opportunity. So whichever opportunity comes, I can already seize that opportunity. So constantly upskilling, but I think the key thing, it's a self-drive. You have to really initiate that, as well as taking advantage of some of these industry engagements that our academia have as well.
Yeah, so just to add something very quickly, I think that question was very relevant and it's taken me back. One of my favorite authors argues that in the current age, the workforce, especially in order to deal with the rapid rate of change, will need to go beyond the hardcore skills, right? Yeah, so the workplace or whether it's the institutions of higher learning need to start emphasizing softer issues like creativity, emotional intelligence, resilience. Because when you think about the current age, we're in the age of AI, where things are shifting very fast. Even right now, it's becoming quite difficult to, keep up pace with new AI tools that are coming up, since the launch of ChatGPT. Like every other day, there's something new that AI can do that humans used to do. And so when you think about 30 years ago, for instance, it was almost given that if you studied being a cobbler, then you'd end up dying a cobbler. Today, that is not the case. So the workforce will need to constantly adapt, constantly evolve. They'll need to keep learning every day to keep up, with the rate of change. So I think even despite the fact that universities are constantly getting a bashing, one thing that, they are doing well is really to instill this culture of creativity, emotional intelligence, resilience, critical thinking, because those 4 skills, have become an imperative in the current age.
Maybe I just want to pose a question to all of you. How many guys are in university right now? How many? I'm not going to ask you a question directly. Yeah? I want to challenge you guys. We've been told about, so maybe you're doing the hard skills, the soft skill bit of it, but also something else I want you guys to actually ask yourselves. The day of graduation, 400 of you will be graduating with the same degree. What makes you different? What makes you different is what you'll be doing during your long breaks, what you'll be doing during all those breaks that you guys have. So you're home for 3 months. What are you doing with these 3 months? Let me tell you one thing. All these communities, I'll give you an example like a community I'm in. IEEE, for those guys who are in STEM, IEEE also has a student membership bit. So as in like, these events are clearly there for you to network. When you go there, you'll meet with different people. I came to realize that a CEO is a person just like me, and they would love to just hear from you. Just stop them, talk to them, and don't go there with a mindset that how much are you going to pay me? Because unfortunately, that's a mindset that a lot of people are actually going with. Go with the mindset that you're going to learn. By the way, if you actually ask, you're supposed to even pay those guys because you're actually learning from them. So all of these 3 months, if it's possible, I usually say, if I met someone to tell me that from my first year of my undergrad, if, let's say, for example, you're studying law, in the first year, definitely you do not know much about law. You can actually be the kandaya moko, lack of a better word. You're the one to be sent here, everywhere, and there. Go to that particular firm. You're told to sort out maybe some of these files. Sort those particular files. The next time you're doing something different. So at the very end of it all, you're actually the Uber driver. Yeah? At the end of it all, you're not just, you've finished your law degree or you finished your engineering degree and you're just the same as everyone else. Okay? I remember like, Sami, I have a 23-year-old brother. And I kept telling him, you just can't graduate with just a degree. Yes, you're saying you just graduated with a degree in IT. What makes you unique? And I remember I actually forced him into actually doing some courses from Huawei on networking. Trust you me, he's actually reaping a lot with the networking courses because they're more hands-on. I'm not bashing universities saying that we're not hands-on. We are, yeah, in some of the, depending with the lecturer that you actually find, yeah. But what you're saying is that what will make you unique? That you're saying, okay, I am Jerry, I have a degree in computer science, hey, what else? You can actually say, oh, other than that, I've done, I'm a certified ethical hacker. Oh, what else? Oh, I've actually done networking from this. Okay, what else? Because all these things actually building capacity with that. You're actually building, you're actually having experience from the industry with what you're actually just learning. So it's so easy when someone actually just says, oh, this is someone who's willing to learn. Because I will actually see the willingness of learning with actually how proactive were you through your 4 years, your 5 years in school. So that's what they're actually talking about. Willingness to learn, it's not about A's. What I like about the field of computing, really the field of engineering, is that it's never about you had an A in a certain topic, in a certain unit. The question is, if you say that you are really good in a certain language, what do? You give them something, you're like, you're good in this? Okay, let's see the output, not the paper anymore. Okay, and slowly we're actually seeing more and more of that. And also these technologies that are actually coming up, use them well. Generative AI, how are you guys using ChatGPT? Use them well. Okay, not just use them to submit an assignment and I will know. By the way, I always know. We usually submit something because I will actually try as much as possible to actually make sure to actually get to know, are you the one who actually did this work or not? Yes, so I'll interrogate you. So if I get to see that you're not the one who actually did this work, I'm like, okay, you actually cheated. Okay? So these tools that are coming in, how are you using them? Use them responsibly. And that's the reason why we actually have this bit of responsible AI. Yeah.
Wow. So now that Dr. Njeri has actually preempted my last question, my question to the three of you individually is, if you were to go back to Campo, but SAISI with generative AI specifically, I'm going to talk about ChatGPT, how would you use ChatGPT to make sure you're the best engineer Kenya has ever seen?
Let me use that example with what I'm actually doing right now. Not only am I an educator, but also I'm actually a researcher and a consultant in ICT for development. So what actually tools like ChatGPT, they've actually done is that you are able to do things a bit faster. But trust you me, even if you're doing things a bit faster, you have to understand what you're doing. And that's the reason why we're talking about prompt engineering. It's just a word that was just called the other day. Prompt engineering. What prompts are you giving it? Remember GIGO? Garbage in?
Garbage out.
Garbage out.
Yeah.
Okay? So as much as it's actually just giving you, for me, I actually look at it like a queue. Maybe I need to actually now get to, maybe just bring out a topic on something. I'm like, okay, let me just bring out, so what are these guys? So like, oh, now I go further, I go deeper. So that I mean that now you stop reading your books, you stop doing your research further. What just something like generative ChatGPT for this example, these are large language models. What they've actually done for this particular case, they've just made your time, they've made this time for searching on net a bit faster. So don't misuse it. And that's the reason why I'm talking about responsible AI. You guys, I'll keep saying that. Because I have seen even projects by students, you can actually see someone giving you something that is generated, and you're like, your English is not even there. It's not. As in, let me see that you actually did something. Yeah, you actually did something, not just bringing out something. And then what I like about the LLMs, like now the ChatGPT that actually out, is that it gives you pointers. When it came out, I was scared stiff. Because I remember when it came out, was it November last year? I remember in December, I just put it up give me a 5,000-word report on this and this. And what it gave me an introduction, it gave me like a whole proposal, give me an introduction, give me a methodology. The best thing about it cannot cite for you. So if you're citing using ChatGPT, check your sources really well. It lies. Yeah? Check your sources really well. So you actually put over there, so I'll just go to that particular source. So if it's, I'm like, this was actually generated using ChatGPT. So for me, how I use, because I use these AI tools, I use these AI tools for me to actually be able to do more and a bit faster. And trust you me, it's not going to do everything for you. It's just, I usually call it like a skeleton bit of it, and you need to flesh it out. Okay? So I'm an advocate of responsible AI. Use these particular tools, because trust you me, they're here with us. They're going to even become better. Okay? Yeah.
Alan?
First of all, I'm not so sure I want to go back to campus unless I'm going back there to earn a salary. Anyway, that's a story for another day. I think tools such as AI are designed to enhance human productivity. And I want to echo what the good doctor is saying here, that we need to use technology in a responsible and in an ethical way. So for me, I think one of the things I really struggled with, in campus, was when I was doing my project. My background is information systems, so I did some programming, back then. Today, if there was ChatGPT, I know I'd, probably increase my throughput. But so when you think about tech and specifically AI, it has limitations. So it's always important to fact check. Fact check. Do not just take everything that AI spits out. For the gospel's truth, you have to fact check. You have to make sure that whatever information you are getting, from a generative AI tool, is actually factual. When you think about tools such as GPT, there's limitation to how forward or how far back they can information they possess. So for instance, ChatGPT I think can only give you information up to 2021. If you are a researcher, you definitely want to go with the most current, most up-to-date body of knowledge. So I think it's just about ensuring that we do not lose that human element of curiosity and constantly pushing the envelope. So use AI to increase your throughput, but always keep pushing the envelope. Make sure that where you need to fact check, please fact check, and always stay responsible.
Thank you, Alan. Yvonne?
I think it's just to echo what has been said. I think most of these generative AI tools will be as accurate as the data they were trained with. So if the data was not accurate, it was not good, then the output is also not good. So I think for me, I'd use more as a guide. Sometimes it gives you an idea of what else you've left or an idea that you didn't think about.
Yeah.
So sometimes just getting an idea and then use now your other tools, your other knowledge to continue researching. But it always guides you, and also, as Alan has mentioned, increasing your velocity. You'll find most of these tools, now we have even like Copilot for developers. But you also still need to have the basic knowledge. So that's, I think that's the most important. Even as we adopt the generative AI or AI tools, you'll still need to have that basic knowledge so that you know what are you prompting it to give you. So if I need something, I'll need to know or have an understanding of what I need, and then now maybe use that as a framework and then continue with my research, so that I'm also not relying on something that's not as accurate as it should be.
Thank you, guys. As you've heard from Yvonne, you still need to know the basics. Watu wa engineering hapa hivi, kama Fourier series na Laplace hai make sense, please, amwezi enda ChatGPT and then you start asking it questions if you don't understand. Sawa? So, to the panelists, thank you so much. It has been very engaging. We have learned a lot. And God bless you as we continue building world-class tech talent in Kenya for the world. Kindly clap for them. Alan is asking whether you guys have any questions. Okay. Who will be my co-MC with the microphone? Kabla sijaanguka.
Thank you so much. My name is Stella. I'm representing an organization that we're selling actually a soft skills program. So to you, the panel, would you advocate for universities to add soft skills courses as part of the curriculum, as opposed to being an add-on? I say that because we have the best tech talent in East Africa, but would you say that, some of us, we're one step away from selling the best solution, but the soft skills are just not there? How we approach you, how we approach an investor, how we put up the pitch together, our confidence levels. We know startups, like you said, AI is accelerating, tech is accelerating. Organizations may not necessarily have the budget to train new entrants. It's ukiingia umeingia and you go. And you need to send me to speak to a high-ranking individual. Yes, I've been in the industry for 10 years, but somebody who's been there so good, but just lacks the soft skills. So within the education space, would you advocate for universities to add that to their curriculum? Thank you.
Apparently, we have some units for soft skills. Unfortunately, how they are being taught, it's like we call them common university courses. Yeah? So what happens most of the time? You have a class of something like around 500 students. How will these 500 students concentrate? So that's the reason why you actually find a lot of students skiving. Yet, it is a very vital skill. What's actually happening, you're having an engineer who's really, really good, or you're actually having a coder coding really, really well. But when you tell them to speak, actually, they just can't. They just freak out. So then they just want to be, apparently how coders actually known, hoodie and all that, just looking down. But when it comes to the bit where you're actually doing an interview, they no longer just look at times what you're just purely doing. Question is how you are the face of the company. Nowadays, at times some of these organizations are actually working remotely. Okay, so no longer do you have a secretary at the entrance, not all the time, and who has to smile all day to actually make sure that the face of the company is actually really taken care of. But right now, you're talking about you as an employee of a certain organization. What more relevant skills do you have to be able to market, lack of a better word, your organization? So do we really need this? Yes. Do we have this in universities? Yes, but not being done in the correct way. So I would love to actually see most of these units, these interpersonal skills being able to actually are taught in a setting where the class says are smaller, just the way we're actually teaching the hard courses. Okay, hard skill courses, yes.
Any other question?
Hi. So, good afternoon.
Good evening.
Oh, good evening, actually. So, my name is David. I'm actually I have one question on the way. So to start with the number, Madam says Nairobi has employed 13K, I think individuals who are working. By my number, I would say they are 17K, apart from the people who are ghost workers, not ghost workers. They are workers, but ghost pay. They are in the system, operating in the system, but they are not having kind of a pay system attached to the work they do. So my name is David Nyutwaithaka. I'm a value, there's no. Nothing that has value is free. Actually, I believe that that's like a mindset that is actually bringing Africa as a region down. Because first of all, I'm actually a fellow at like 3 fellowships back in America. And the idea is, if you look at the American, all basically the global north, they are kind of education system that they use to empower. In fact, knowledge is that we have this like more than 500 fellowships in existing countries. But when you come back to Kenya, as for example, as a case study, I think we only the amount of fellowship existing. So the idea is, instead of Moringo in a way saying you have to pay for this amount of study, either Moringo and Safaricom or maybe an organization like the C, we can come together and say, let's take 500 Kenyans and place them under fellowship. Let's give them mentors for only 3 months, not just for the career. For 3 months, and we give them 4 hours, 24/7, 3 months straight. We give them training on resources, we give them training on how to empower themselves, how to accept themselves, how to grow themselves, how to learn this system of education. And when you do that, when you try to take this mindset of increasing this system of like fellowship or mentor, for example, you go to a global system like Europe or America, everyone is a mentor and everyone is a mentee. For example, a doctor has 2 mentees. Yes, every day. So, as I was saying, a mentor, like if you go to the global north, the system happening in Europe, American, you find that a doctor, for example, a doctor has 2 mentees under him, and is also a mentor to someone. If we could apply that to the Kenyan system, to the African system, whereby everyone, for example, you, madam, you take 2 kids or 2 students, you say, I'm a mentor to these 2 students. And at the same time, you're also a mentor to someone else. Moringa, Safaricom, these big institutions, these big companies, monopolies. We could just decide how about we run a kind of like a system of a fellowship. And also to the county government. I believe as an organization, let me just say some of the projects we've done. May this year, I and 6 of my officials, we brought the Vice President of Colombia to Kenya in conjunction with the Colombian embassy. September, we are planning to do the same with the President of Vice Colombia. And the idea is, when I approach, for example, an institution, just a short story of something that happened in Tuk. I reached out to the institution of Tuk. The Vice President came with the Vice Minister of Education. I reached out to the management of Tuk and I said the Vice Minister wanted a place to host a 40-minute lecture. The school, a lot of diplomacy said, write an email, blah, blah, blah. At that same time, UN came in and took the opportunity, and the Vice Minister went to UN and gave out 200 free scholarships. The idea is, we actually undervaluing our youths, just because of we are applying this kind of like edge factor to the knowledge that they have. And that, I think, in a way, messes us. So the idea is, 1, just to sum it up, 1, how can we apply this technological advancement and all this technology offline? And 2, can we as a government, as a business, as an individual at a level, try to push this kind of like empowering, inspiring system? We create more fellowships. We say, let me be a mentor to someone, let me be a mentee to someone. Can we just try and work on that? Thank you.
Thank you so much. The first question to Yvonne on how we are using technology to inspire and solve issues. Dr. Njeri, you can answer the question on, I don't want to call them bureaucracies, but I guess in short, bureaucracies within our institutions. And Alan, can we democratize knowledge?
Was there a question really?
Yes, the question was, you said you have to pay for learning. Why don't we democratize and make it accessible to everyone?
I think I can start on the use of technology. You know, a lot of organizations, like for us, we have a wing within our sustainability business that we call Technology for Good, where we are using technology to actually solve societal problems or issues that are being experienced in the society. So I think that's one of the initiatives where we can use some of these emerging technologies or these emerging trends where we identify maybe it's an area of food or agriculture or health, and use technology to address an issue in that field. So there are initiatives in different industries where are using technology to do good without charging. I know most of the products that we'll have will pay, but you'll find we'll have these initiatives that we'll offer as part of either CSR, but using technology for good and offer solutions to citizens that add value, solve a problem for the community, and just make it more accessible and sort the issues also as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Yvonne. Alan?
Yeah, so there's never anything as a free lunch. Somebody has to pay. If you are studying for free, it basically means somebody else is paying for you. Moringa School is a for-profit organization. However, we also are big on impact. One of our core pillars, we have 3 strategic pillars: community, market-aligned courses, and accessibility. On the issue of accessibility, it's more to do with reaching the underserved segments with market-aligned courses and supporting them post-graduation to integrate into the world of work. I'm very proud to say that through our accessibility programs, we've mainstreamed more women into our programs. We are now at 40% enrollment, 40% graduation for women. Last year, we conducted a compensation survey, and what we realized, interestingly, is that women start at a higher median salary as compared to their male counterparts after graduating from Moringa School. Beyond that, we've worked with organizations such as MasterCard Foundation, GIZ, to bring more underserved segments into tech and STEM, and specifically through our Access program, which was fully supported by MasterCard. We trained more than 2,500 young people from underserved communities. Out of that, 67%, as of the last time of checking, were able to get into jobs, to earn dignified income. So yes, we are doing our bit, but the play field is big enough for other players to also come in and lend their hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Dr. Njeri?
Let me start with the question that I can be able to actually answer. I would like to really just weigh on Yvonne's, the one that Yvonne actually answered. When it comes to technology and community, there's one thing that we should always know. Each and every time you actually get someone from that particular community, let's say, for example, let me just give a case of there's a group of girls, Samburu Girls Foundation. They are all the way in Marwal. And what they did is that they just looked around their community and saw the issue that they're actually facing, and then decided to actually use the available technology, not technology that, not the high-end kind of technology. So question is, let me just give a case of something else. When I say that we want to reduce infant mortality rate in Kenya using a chatbot, I usually say that is an oxymoron. Where are these cases? They're not in Nairobi. Most of these cases are maybe up north. Okay? So the same, so if you actually have those women, and that's the reason why now we're talking about design thinking, sit down with them, co-create with the communities, let the communities tell you what kind of tech they can actually be able to actually harness now for that particular case. So if they tell you they still have using USSD, and that's what they can actually afford, that's still a tech that will be able to do much with them. Okay? So when it comes to community, have we reached the point of generative AI in maybe the rural areas of Kenya? Not yet. Yeah? But what technology do they have? You can actually weigh on those particular technology, and they're actually going to actually work really well. Now, the second question of bureaucracy, honestly speaking, I wish I could answer this from the management point of view, but unfortunately, they are bureaucracies in a lot of public institutions, unfortunately. And I know them as blockers at times. So you need something, and then there's a blocker for it, because not in bad faith, because maybe someone knows that before I make a commitment to something, my senior boss needs to know about it. Okay? So it has to escalate all the way. Now, for this particular case, we had a change of VCs. Was this particular during that particular time? Way before, we had the change of VCs. So honestly speaking, I do not know how to answer that, but what I can actually just tell you in public institutions, you do not want to actually give you don't want to okay something. And then when you go to your boss, they actually ask you, why did you okay it without me? And then something else when it comes to a VC, for this particular case, such a person is not your visitor, is an institutional visitor. So when they come in, the VC has to know about it. The VC has to actually have them in the, host them in the boardroom. So question is, in his diary maybe, is he available at that particular time or not? So honestly, for me, what I can actually just say is, nasiku watetea, but we have actually seen that in a lot of public institutions. Yeah.
Thank you so much, team. Because of time, allow us to end. We have another panel coming up. The theme for this Innovation Week is Innovation Unleashed for Economic Opportunities. And I'm going to invite Mary Mutonga from Safaricom to come and introduce her panelists as well as the topic for their panel. For the people in this panel, thank you so much. God bless you.
Wenye wanaenda rudini. We are about to start the most exciting session for the day. So anyway, good evening, everyone. I know it's at 5 p.m., so I'll try to keep this short and sweet, because I know we do have other responsibilities beyond this event that unfortunately we cannot delegate to generative AI. So we have to be here physically. So Kevin, to your challenge, I do have mentees, and actually that reminds me of a visit we did this weekend. I partner with the Mukuru Promotion Center, who look after rehabilitating our street boys. And actually they taught me something that I didn't know. They taught me the new way of greeting people for the Gen Zs. And I was told, you don't greet people saseni, you greet them Mamboni. I know. Clearly, it tells me the age of my audience. Anyway, so I'm happy to facilitate this exciting panel, and I don't know why I can't see the theme for the event, because I wanted to work with that. But ideally, after we have gone through the session on how we can make sure that our youths upskill for the future and become more fit for innovation, my panel is to discuss how do we accelerate innovation in the Kenyan tech landscape. And I want to invite my panelists. There are three powerful women. We'll start with Dr. Charity. You can make your way to the podium. Then I have Eneth. And I have Sarah from Moringa. You can have a seat. If the seat becomes too hot, I don't know kwenye maji imeenda, but I'm assuming at some point there will be water. Okay. Yeah, you can come closer, you can stay where you are. I'm good. Yeah. Okay, and as you can see, the future is female. Sio mimi nilichagua panel, by the way. I just found myself with beautiful, powerful women for this discussion. And I'll start by allowing them to introduce themselves. Maybe they can tell us their names, what they do, and what they love about innovation. We'll start from Dr. Charlie. This is embarrassing. Homeboys, tusaidie.
Yeah, I think this is much better. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, even technologists have issues with tech, right? My name is Charity Wayua, and I'm the director for IBM Research. We're essentially an institution that, we're a research institution, but that's tied to a business. So our main function is to develop new technologies that become products that our company sells globally. And your question about what's most exciting about innovation for me, it's the ability to solve problems in cool and interesting ways. That's what I find most exciting.
Thank you, Dr. Charity.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eneth Kubai. I'm the head of enterprise architecture in Safaricom. I am mandated with actually figuring out how to arrange IT in Safaricom so that we are actually ready for the future. And part of my responsibility is also the innovation section. My background is solution architecting, and I think solution architects are the least known innovators because they are always expected to come up with solutions, but that's where my love for innovation comes from, being a solution architect, figuring out how things need to logically work together to meet the business need.
Good, thank you, Annette.
Hi, how are you? My name is Sarah Getha. I work at Moringa as the Employer and Industry Relations Lead. What I do in a nutshell is just connect our graduates to various opportunities in industry for those who are interested in getting work placements, those who are interested in getting into entrepreneurship, or those who are looking to get into freelance opportunities. I get to act as a bridge that brings the employer, essentially, or industry together with the talent. What I love about innovation is just how it is able to drive growth consistently. With innovation, you can never remain in the same space. So new products, new services, new people consistently. And I think for me, that's what I love about innovation.
Okay, thank you so much for being available for this discussion. And as you can see, we have saved the best for last. Students, kazi ziko pale. You can see Sarah after this. And as a matter of introduction, my name is Mary. I'm the CHRO you have been hearing about. I'm the one who tells people about Uber and country bus drivers. Anyway, I'm just kidding. My responsibility is I'm the chapter lead for talent and capability for Safaricom. In short, mi ndiye mwalimu Safaricom. That's how I can simplify my job. So I guess, reminder, the topic today is to see how do we accelerate innovation within the Kenya tech landscape. And I'll start this conversation by referencing something that was discussed in the morning, where there was a clear call out that for us to gain the real benefits of innovation, you cannot do this alone. As we have heard before, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go as a team. So I have a question for Eneth. So open innovation models have become quite very popular, especially in the Kenyan setup. So my question is, how can companies effectively collaborate with the ecosystem for them to gain the real benefits of innovation?
Thank you for the question. So maybe I'll just start by giving a bit of a background of where we've come from. I think you've heard of secret R&D labs somewhere. So that's where innovation started, closed innovations, where companies had top secret research labs. And then from there, the next thing that we moved to the place where actually you have innovation teams. And then now the company was able to do innovations in the company, but not allowing the public to actually come in and give ideas. And then now we are in the place where now organizations actually set out there. They put contests and hackathons, and they give business problems, and from this they get ideas, and then now they're able to do the open innovation. So where can we play as a business community in Kenya? The first thing I would say is one, coming up with structures and systems to support open innovation. What does this mean? Starting by simply, one, having a budget for innovation. Yeah, simply. Then the next thing is, of course, as part of the structures, having staff members who actually support innovation in the company. Because when you actually ask for people to give ideas, you'll get millions of ideas. Who's going to sift through these ideas? So the next thing is the staff. The next thing after that is, of course, legal. It was mentioned in the previous panel, where you figure out what is a legal process that this team needs to follow. Once you have the structure set up for this open innovation, the next thing is now you need to start doing it. Yeah, I would say today, if you asked to bring ideas to Safaricom, you'd be a bit shaky. And as I say, that is the third thing for open innovation. I would say the next thing is building trust, where now we actually start step by step. When I ask for ideas from the outside, how do I deal with them? Am I very clear from the get-go? This is what it means for you to give us an idea. This is what we'll do with your idea. One, we will not steal your idea. Two, there is an IP here. The next thing, as in just being very clear on what to do and having a very clear communication, very open, and being able to actually notify the people who are giving you ideas at every stage so that they get to a point where they actually trust you to give you the ideas. The next thing, the last thing maybe we would want to add, I'm sorry I've spoken too long, is you need to actually showcase success stories. People believe by seeing. Yeah, so now you need to actually show someone who brought an idea from the outside of Safaricom and benefited from it. It does not always have to be you got a cash prize. It could just be, how did you improve their lives? Did you partner with them? Did you assist them in another way? So that is what I would say as the last point. Thank you.
Okay, quite interesting. So who do you think are the biggest partners for companies to realize innovation?
Oh my God, the customers. Because they know the products. Yeah, I would say that. The second one I would say is our vendors as well. And this is something we're trying in Safaricom, but it's mostly open innovation a bit with the vendors, where now we're turning our vendors to become partners. So, but the first one, of course, is customers, because they know our products, they know how we can improve them to get more value.
Okay, and I want to drive the point on customers, and I want to speak to Sarah at this point. So innovation is quite interesting because it enables us to unlock value for the customer. And borrowing in what Endeth has just told us, how do you think companies can collect effective customer insights for them to be able to innovate effectively for the customer?
That's a very interesting question, because I think for organizations that ideally do not go back to the customer, somehow they remain obsolete. And for that, one of the things that we look at is, and I'll use what we use at Moringa, is we build client personas or customer personas and create journey maps for what ideally the customer would look like, what value are they seeking to derive from the business, and then at the end of the day, what are the outcomes that they're looking at? So one of the key things that I would think about is building that persona. And sometimes building that persona means, are you able to go back to how you do your posting on social media? What kind of content are you generating? What kind of content has gotten reactions? So that is what allows you to also think about, if this product got this kind of reaction, is it because this is exactly what the clients need? And from that, now you go and develop feedback surveys and get to collect that feedback to ascertain that for sure, it's not just the fact that I'm basing this on customer sentiment on social media, but I'm also basing it on facts and data that we can analyze and make decisions and products out of it.
Okay. What should companies watch out for when they are collecting customer insights?
I think in this space, we are very keen on data privacy and data protection. So the kind of information that you're collecting is, one, have you gotten consent from the client? Have you been able to get, what kind of data are you collecting from the client? If it is personal data, have you been able to make sure that they are aware of exactly what it is that you're utilizing for this specific data that you're collecting? So for me, I'd say the biggest thing is around data protection and data privacy, and just making that known to the public that the reason why we are collecting this data is to inform these kind of decisions, and this is exactly what we're using it for.
Okay. Fair enough, and I want to write on your point. I want us to talk about responsible innovation. It's similar to what the panel that left a few seconds ago was talking about, responsible AI. And I want to ask Dr. Charity, because I know you have done a lot of research on this. So sustainability and innovation are very closely linked. So how can companies leverage sustainability principles to drive innovation?
Very good question, possibly a long answer, but the short answer for me, I think, is to think about it from two perspectives. One is, I think, in making sure that we embed ideas or principles about sustainability in the way that we innovate, in the ideas that we come up with. So, for example, in tech, it may be simple, I'm going to say simple, but it may be in intentional things like, okay, one of the things that we want to build are systems that are going to be green. So whatever product you build, that becomes one of the principles with which you will define the success of the product. Or we are going to analyze data, but we want to make sure that in part of the way that we save energy costs, we're going to do X, Y, Z. In the data centers that we build, we're going to, so you can have principles that become the definers of how you build all your technology, regardless of whether it's a sustainability project. So that's on one end. I think the other side of it is when we look at sustainability goals or targets as opportunities for innovation. So today when we talk about companies wanting to become net zero or wanting to meet certain sustainability goals, I think it's for us as innovators to look at those as opportunities for us to solve that as a problem that will possibly have a meaningful economic value. And I think there's so much that we miss out on there when we only position them as CSR products. I think there's a space and room for CSR, but I also think it's important that we look at the 17 SDGs as opportunities for unlocking economic value for us and for people to be able to develop new ideas and to build products that people will be willing to pay for, etc. So that's the continuum I kind of think about, and we have really good examples of where we see those two coming into play and being quite successful.
Please give us those examples, just one.
Yeah, so one example I'll tell you is this idea of, since we're talking about, let me start with climate and sustainability specifically. Today, a lot of us think about companies setting a goal for net zero as something that will be run by a very specific organization in sustainability or environmental. They have different names, right? The company I work for, we actually look at it and say, there are products that we can build that will make that work much, much easier. So one is looking to say, there's a lot of data that's known, but people need to process that data and develop insights that can now go into somebody who's working in ESG to be able to meet their net zero goals. So that becomes a product that we're now selling globally. Let me now go back into the second. So that's the example of where you look at something in in the SDGs, and you turn that into a product. I can give examples about some of the goals that have been set about quality education, about access to water for for everyone. One example that I would talk about there is I've seen companies that, yes, they are funded by NGOs, but they now look and say, how can I create value that will now be a profitable venture? So one example is to say, I'm going to start to provide, and this is one we all know, I'll create a business model that allows me to provide water in a certain environment, but I will use tech to do that, and all of a sudden that becomes a business, even though it's funded by NGOs, etc. So I think there's multiple ways of thinking about how we innovate within the problem sets that we are faced with towards creating economic value. I hope those two are sufficient.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely. Thank you very much. Kenneth, you look like you want to say something around sustainable innovation.
I like the fact that we're not leaving the sustainable development goals to the people who are actually having the problem. We are tackling it as an organization. Even Safaricom are not just doing moving away from technology, becoming a technology company. We start there. Then, of course, things like Safaricom Foundation that do not just even deal with tech. They go to the actual problem areas and they find problems on the ground and they work on them. And then maybe the third one I would say is even what we are doing with like the engineering communities. This is sustaining education, yeah? So we see all these areas. And Safaricom has done many things. It's cleaned, I don't know, cities. Yeah, they've done, I remember one of the things that I always remember about Safaricom is in those zebra crossing, they have someone there just to stop, and I don't know how much they're paying them. But you see, that is just safety, and it's just sustaining. And that was someone's brilliant idea. And you might think the ideas you need to come up with are big ones that will do the next M-Pesa, but you just need to start with one, humanness, and a bit of, and I think this is really just running from what our purpose is, transforming lives. With that as a arrow, our true north, then you start seeing ideas around that do that. Like Ligindogo, what is it called? Dimba. Chapadimba. That is such a nice idea. Thank you.
Sarah?
I think for me, what I would look at is, again, I will take this from a Moringa perspective and how we make sure that that is consistent. I think when Alan was here, he spoke about how we have consistent industry engagements. But for us, we don't stop there. We also want to see what has the journey been for this graduate or for this student who has participated either in an innovation or in a hackathon, just to look at the sustainability of the project. Are we able to offer more assistance? Are we able to offer more support? Just to make sure that whatever it is that they pinpointed or whatever it is that they took as a solution is sustainable in the long run. You know, whether it comes to funding or it comes to mentorship, that consistency for us is also something that is particularly important.
Okay. I want to say sustainability in innovation is very keen for me because I just took a break, a 2 minutes break. I walked out, I went to the ladies, and of course we are all told that you need to look for innovation everywhere you go. So in my journey of taking care of business, I flushed to the toilet and I can swear I saw 20 liters of water going down the drain. And I asked myself, what innovation exists around this? Because NAIROBI doesn't have enough water, even for our own households. And the fact that we keep relying on rain for us to actually grow crops and feed the nation, I want to believe that water can be used better. So my question is, how many of us have gone through that process? Because I know we have all been here the entire day, and we have visited those beautiful facilities. Are we thinking about what else we can do? Let's post on that. I'll come to you. I won't forget. So allow me to quickly move on. So this is a question I want to ask, and it's a question that is very close to all of us, because as a society, we are not encouraged to fail. And if you're a student in this room, I'm sure, Mushaambiwa, if you don't get this pass mark, what happens? You either resit or you'll have to pay to undertake the course again. So in a way, failure in the Kenyan context is either punished or shunned. But the most interesting bit is that innovation cannot exist without failure. So, my dear panelists, what is the role of failure in fueling innovation?
I think I can start, and I'll start by saying this. I felt my experience in getting a PhD was actually a series of failures, trying, failing, learn. I should actually say it this way: trying something, failing, learning, then trying again, failing, learning, and eventually you have a thesis. I can see Prof here also nodding. So I think there has to be a mindset that with which we view failure. So I'll put that on one hand. The second thing that has impacted the way I think about failure greatly is there's an article that a Harvard professor, her name is Amy Edmondson. If you get a chance, please look at it. And she talks about this continuum of failure and where we need to think about examining when we fail in something, why did we actually fail, and then making a decision about if it was a worthwhile failure or not. So on one end, where she says these ones are not actually worthwhile and we need to find good ways of dealing with, is when you fail something because you are and she talks about this in terms of companies and the way they work and the things they do, okay? So she says if when you do your postmortem about why something did not work and you see that the reason was because we were inattentive, okay, the things that we just chose not to look at, or there was a set of rules and we didn't follow, things like that, then you need to actually chapa yourself on the hand and say, we need to make sure that doesn't happen again, okay? But then there are things that we need to intentionally put effort to actually fail in so that we can learn something. And this is where, let's say you have something really complex, and the only way for us to be able to figure it out is by trying things. So in the space where we are discovering new things, we should give ourselves as much room to fail because we are trying several different things. In the space where things are very complex and maybe you're thinking about things in the future where there are no answers, then you should give yourself the room and space to learn. And as you're learning, things won't work out, but you're able to learn and generate new knowledge that helps you to move forward. So I think that's the space to give ourselves. And I think part of our fear of failing is also based on how other people respond. If you are employed like us, it has a lot to do with how your managers, how the people above look at the way you failed and maybe what opportunities show up. So there's also a role for the rest of the organizations we are in or our mentors in giving us that space to say, this is what I tried, it did not work, but here is what I learned from it. So I think there's a number of different elements that we have to think about when we are talking about the fear of failure, but also even just deconstructing what we mean when we say we failed. Is it that what we wanted to do in the first place we did not achieve? Or is it that, it did not work? How do you, when you call it a failure, what actually is it? Is it that I wanted to get to point A, but I've started on the path and found myself in point B, and now I understand why I didn't get to point A, or what does it actually mean? And the last one maybe I'll share is also in the same way you're talking about showcasing successes, we also have to be able to talk about failures and actually learn from them. In many organizations, as an organization, even you put something out there, you try, it doesn't work, the thing just disappears, no one ever talks about it. And so everyone else you're now afraid, you're like, I don't want to be the person who put out something and it didn't work. I think it's really worthwhile when people in leadership positions, you also reflect back and say, we tried this is why it didn't work, this is what we've learned. I think I've spoken a lot today.
Yes,
I love what you've said. Maybe the thing I would add to that is, how do you feel? And this is where, for example, there's waterfall and agile. You can imagine you do a project for 3 years, and then it fails after 3 years. Yeah, and then now there's agile where there's a sprint for 2 weeks. If it fails, at the end of the 2 weeks, you already know it's failed. So you know you have to go back to the drawing board, figure out what was wrong? Was it the technology? Was it the requirements? Yeah. So that is the first thing. How do you fail? And then now like the speed. The next thing is how do you measure failure? And I like what you said. But now this is where now you also actually recognize effort. Yeah, it might not have actually been successful, but recognize effort. And this is how to do this. For example, is like the hackathons, where you have ideation areas where people come do POCs and they fail, and it's okay. But a few things actually go forward, and those are the things that you either adopt or they win the hackathon. But just this idea of giving people room to fail in a safe place. I think you kind of mentioned psychological safety, where this is another thing that is needed, where just knowing the fact that we're not always right. Yeah, there's something to learn every time, and just having that environment where people are allowed to fail. And this is something that happens where, for example, there's an incident and it's because someone and because of what has happened in the past when people failed, people don't raise their hand to say, I'm the one who did something wrong. So either the failure takes too long to be fixed. So how we fail is something we need to figure out first individually, as an organization, and as how we do things. Thank you.
Thank you, Eneth. Sarah?
So I'll just build up on what Eneth and Yvonne have said. And for me, it's also around leadership, right? And organizational culture. And I'll speak from an organizational perspective and then transcend that into the individual level. There's one thing that my CEO consistently says, fail fast, fail forward. Right? Because he does understand that for every new thing or for every space you're in, there is always room for failure. But I think it's also having that iterative power to go back and look at what did I do wrong? How did I do it wrong? Did I have the right machinery around me, or did I have the right stakeholders around me to make sure that I do not fail or I succeed in whatever it is that I was looking at. However, the other thing is also, just like they've mentioned, are you putting out things to see if they will actually work or they will fail? So there's those two measures. I think the other thing is also in the definition of what outcomes you're looking at, and how do you define those outcomes as failures, and how do you what kind of feedback loops do you have consistently where failure is concerned? Because I think that is very important. In a space where you're consistently, or there's failure and there's harsh reprimand, then will you ever get up again to say that I have this new idea and I want it to work, and this is what I'm thinking about it, and this is the budget? You know, all those things that go around innovation. Or are you getting to a point where you take a step back and evaluate each step, you know, alongside maybe your supervisor, or alongside your manager, or alongside your team, just again to feed into that loop of, yes, we made a mistake, yes, there was a failure, but what can we learn out of it, and how do we then either retrace our steps or move forward? Because sometimes we always assume that failure is moving steps backwards, but sometimes failure is also moving forward. That I will not come back to this again, we are actually advancing.
Okay. Yeah. And I want to bring in a point of how we bring our next generations. Because we are talking about failure from an organization perspective, but how do we handle failure in our own family setups? Because the same individuals who end up in organizations are the same daughters and sons we are raising today. So is there a difference in approach in terms of how you approach failure from those two contexts?
Maybe I can go first. So I have preteen, and the way I was brought up and how I was encultured or socialized as far as failure is concerned is totally different from what they get. We're coming into a space where kids are recognized for just merely participating. But I think it's also important for us to create parameters around, you don't necessarily just get a reward for participating. Did you go over and above? Did you exceed your potential? And how do you identify your potential? And having those conversations early on. But I think it's also important for us to allow them to fail, right? So you are in a race, you're in a competition, and you are number one. The ones who are getting an award is number 1, 2, and 3, and you came in number 4. To be honest, I don't think you need to get a certificate for being number 4. right? And having very honest conversations, because then what happens is that they sit in that number 4 and will never move, despite the fact that, you know, they have the potential for it. So I think for me, it's also having those conversations with them from the get-go and allowing them to fail continuously and consistently, but with guidance. Because I think sometimes that's what we lack, is we just allow them to fail, we make noise about it, or we recognize and say, kababa, come on, you know. And I think that is also not allowing them to experience or to explore as much as possible. And I think the other thing is also creating an environment of exploration, right? Fortunately, where my daughter goes to school, they are allowed to have that. They are even given suggestion box. You know, what did you not like about, what don't you like about the school? What would you want changed about the school? And some of their suggestions are read out, but they are read out with them, with the space to allow them to introspect on, is this actually practical? And they're walked through what a practical solution would look like. When they get into coding, they're allowed to make failures, to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. So I think it's also how we're enculturing the generation, one, by not giving them leeway to think they can get away with anything, but also correcting them and giving guidance where that is concerned, and putting away our own socialization, because I think that plays a huge, huge role to either overcompensate or be a bit too harsh, not to allow them to explore enough to learn from their failures.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So, Dr. Njeri, please allow your students to fail. They are behind you, they are making notes. They will quote you to the VC. Anyway, moving on to the next bit, and I want us to talk about risks, because she spoke about risk and how you can govern that element around the family context. So innovation requires you to take risks, and most often than not, they have to be calculated risks. So to the three panelists, how do you manage and mitigate risks, especially around innovation projects? You can start with Doctor.
So I think it's a question that we're all working through the answers all the time, but a couple of pointers. I think one is, we kind of both alluded to it, is this idea of structuring your projects in a way that you can detect when they're working or not working relatively quickly. One of the ways, I think, you know, coming from a science background, I think it's this idea of experimentation. So she talked about agile. I think a second idea is experimentation, and how you set up small experiments that confirm that you're heading in the right direction for your innovation project. So that's a second one. The other way I think about managing risk is really about let me call it your portfolio of projects. So in the event that you have an opportunity to do more than one project, then I think it's also how you think about them. So there are things where you're making perhaps incremental improvements, where, you know, the likelihood of failure, and I'm just calling it a likelihood, there's nothing guaranteed, right? But the likelihood of failure is much lower. And also, you know, the other dimension is, as I said, the time scale that you're working with. So you always work with a portfolio of products where you have things that you can be able to demonstrate impact quickly, and they're not as risky. Then there are other things that are sort of somewhere in the middle, and then you have other things where you're just, it's a big risk, high reward, and then you try and manage it in terms of how you chunk it into small pieces, so that you're also not telling everyone, I need $10 million over the next 10 years, and then after 10 years, I'll tell you if this thing worked. So for me, that's how to balance it. And then within that balancing is where even this idea of, it gives you the room for allowing for failure. If you're an innovation organization and every single one of your projects fail, I assure you there will be budgetary cuts, right? So you also want to manage it from that perspective, so that there are things that are successful and you're able to demonstrate that. Then there are things that won't work. And when you've demonstrated that some are successful, then the things that don't work, people also give you the room to continue to work on them, or you make a decision about when to scale back. And I think this idea of knowing when to stop something is so incredibly important. Many of us don't stop things until it's way too late. But I think getting to that level of introspection as a team, etc., where you look and say, okay, this is actually not working, and we've tried this, it's time to move to the next thing and just declare it as something that did not work is also really important in managing all of that.
Okay.
So what I would add is one of the risks we have as well is when either because of lack of structures, the innovation team is not empowered to actually bring innovative ideas out. So I would give an example. There's an organization, it has very clear goals of what they should do. And they do this whole hackathon, and they get many ideas, and those ideas do not align to the goals. So the ideas actually fail on the hackathon level. So I would say one of the ways of actually mitigating risks is actually having innovation as a strategy for the company, yeah? And then the minute that happens, the next thing is now when you're doing these hackathons, if you don't have budget to do ideas that are not part of your other goals, then you just need to ask for hackathon ideas on your problem statement, on your normal goals. Yeah? This way you actually make sure your innovation team is empowered. They might do very many nice events, get thousands and thousands of ideas, but if something is never comes to life, people are going to get discouraged, and one of these ideas could actually be the thing that is going to make your organization go to the very next level. So that is one of the things I would say, making innovation actually a strategic point, making innovation a priority. The other thing I would add is the other risk I see in innovation is the staff do not have time to innovate. You have 8 to 5. Your manager is very clear on your objectives.
My senior has time to innovate. Does she work?
Time for innovation, yeah. And you see now, this is where now, if maybe you can give Friday afternoon for innovation, and even maybe create spaces. There's an innovation center. Today in innovation center, we are serving lunch. People just show up. There are things to hack there. You see now, just creating space for innovation, and this is part of building a culture of innovation in your company, reduces the risks that come eventually. You do it, people don't have time, and either they don't come up with nice ideas, things like that. Thank you.
Umesikia hiyo? If you want innovation in Kenya, give people food. Did I hear food? Okay. Maybe some of us came for this event because of food. Anyway, yes, Sarah.
So for me, I'd look at two specific things. One is a definition of objectives and outcomes. I think sometimes we override that. We create, yes, but we don't consistently go back to check that we are in line with whatever it is that we're looking at, or giving the flexibility of making sure that the deliverables and the objectives and the goals of these projects of innovations are what we're actually meeting. So I think that is important. So one, definition of objectives and goals, but two, also creating a consistent feedback loop and feedback mechanism. I think the other thing that for me is very important is bringing in, I would call it stakeholder mapping and engagement. With innovation, sometimes we always assume that it is just for a specific department, but if you look at the products that you're looking, they will affect different departments. So I feel it is important to also sit back when you're defining whatever it is, the project that you're looking to launch. Are we able to bring in the right people into the team? Because then that means when you're creating the product, you've been able to look at the entire pipeline end to end and bring in the people who would be able to give productive input to make sure that that innovation either takes off or wherever it is that it might have gaps, in the process, you're able to mitigate early enough.
Okay, I want to give the audience some bits of Mwakenya. When M-Pesa is not working, airtime is not going through, please note it's NF mwenye amekanyanga waya. She is innovating. She told us how she experiments with the wires. So, NF, we'll hold you accountable for the next Anonymous Sudan. Anyway, so I'm about to wrap up. So, Please just give me a bit of time. I'll make sure we're out of here in the next 10 to 15 minutes. And I want to ask a question again to the entire panelists. And this is a very interesting question because you touched on it on the elements of budget. If your innovation is not bearing fruits, chances are your budget is cut. Or we have all gone through the processes of where when the CFO gives you a budget to innovate, there is always an ask for returns. So how do you balance that element of short-term results and long-term initiatives that drive sustainability and competitiveness when it comes to innovation?
Wow, fantastic question. I think it's not something that you can just manage as the innovation team. I think it actually has to be your company strategy. What you can do from an innovation perspective is, one, I think, truly understanding where the business is. And I'll just give you an example. So for us in tech, ChatGPT has upended many, many technology companies. So one example I'll give you is, think about Google, that basically their business model was add revenues on search. And then you bring ChatGPT, where now all of us are using ChatGPT for our search, right? The truth is, even if Google had, I mean, I'm sure they knew this was coming, you know, they'd seen several of the GPT 3, 4, whatever, but when that comes out, you go and rethink your strategy, right? And so all of a sudden, the balance between your short-term, medium-term, long-term really has to take into account what's happening externally that's impacting your business. So I think one is, part of how you manage that is really being aware of what's happening outside that's providing certain pressures to your business, so that at the end, every time your innovation efforts are actually aligned to where the business's shoe pinches the most. So that's one way to think about it, just making sure you're rethinking your strategy based on what is happening outside, what's happening to the business that you can. The second one is, I think, you also have to be able to find a way to articulate very well the value of what you're doing, especially if it's not that short term, so that the CFO and the rest of the leadership team can actually appreciate why they're investing for a longer term. And that's where, again, you have to make sure you're very aligned to the long-term strategy of the company, so that they don't see you as, we also have to put money in this other place. So anytime we feel we're running out of cash, that's the first place we cut. So those are just two thoughts I have on how you manage budgets, but it's difficult, and many times you find yourself trying to operate on a shoestring budget with extremely big dreams. But I think that's just the nature of the work we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in Safaricom, we have this clarion call, doing more with less.
I feel like I work for Safaricom.
So, Eneth, go for it.
So what I would say is, one, being open to innovations. Yeah, and because now these innovations are the ones that are going to get us to the next S-curve. This is the first thing. Then the next thing is, once you get the different ideas, one, just categorizing them into, is it an incremental innovation? Just a small incremental innovation, this would say short term. Another one is sustaining. The thought that came to my mind here, we've been having Omo since I was a baby. Do you know how many times Omo has changed? Omo to do with Powerform, Omo with plus, Omo to do for your hands smooth. You see, all these things, these are incremental and sustaining innovations. But now, there's also now, and this I would classify as a short term, then you have the disruptive and the radical, where now you need very clear structures on how to deal with these two. I would say Safaricom is ripe for disruptive and radical innovations, because you're becoming a tech company. And how to do this, and you mentioned one of the problems of this is have a very clear gate process. Doing an MVP should take 3 months. If after 3 months you don't have a minimum viable product, you need to stop here. And then you have, and this is the thing, having clear gates, and the people who are bringing in the ideas need to know about these gates from the get-go. Maybe the next gate is you do a POC, you get maybe 10 people to test it out. What is the customer feedback? That loop of, remember, we want to fail fast and forward, like my colleague here mentioned, yeah? And then now maybe the next gate is one, what is the business model? How will we make money for this? And have a very clear stopping place. Kenyans are very nice, we're not good at saying no. And this is where now you balance the long-term innovation bit. Be ready to say no. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yes, Sarah?
So for me, I look at it again from two perspectives. One, what are you solving for? And I'll give an example. So in the education space, specifically, I'll talk about higher education. There are two things that we look at. There is a release of new product. That's an innovation that would ideally be responding to what the market demands. And there is also what we call attrition from students. So attrition would be considered short-term because we need to solve that within the next 6 months because it's cutting out our resources as far as school fees is concerned. But in terms of releasing new product, releasing a new course, that's long-term because we need to understand, is this something that the market really ideally needs? And so when we are able to define those two, we're able to tell how much resources or how much budgetary allocation we need to give to the attrition rates to create a solution around it. And how much budget do we need to give to this long term that is ideally looking for products, and is it sustainable? Can we be able to create budgets that would make sense around it without expending too much, because 6 months down the line, you might realize it doesn't even work, or it's no longer a need, it was just a fad that was going around. So for me, I'd say the definition of objectives around what would you classify as short-term and what would you classify as long-term. I think for me, the other thing that I would look at as far as that is concerned is, my train of thoughts has gone.
Iseme na Kiswahili.
Hapana, imekata hata na Kiswahili.
Iseme na mother tongue.
Imekwama hapa nyuma. Acha ikuje mbele.
Okay, if you remember it, please,
yes,
let's enjoy the thought.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So, interesting. So I was reading an article, I think last week, and I saw that in Africa as a continent, 60% of Africa is youth. In Kenya, 80% of the population in Kenya is below 35, which means they're actually youth. What do you think is the role of the youth in driving innovation? And I know most of them are actually here. Are you below 35? So that I'm sure I'm talking to the right people. Dr. Njeri and Isenya, please put your hands down. And Yvonne. Yeah, so please, if you can give your thoughts on that.
What I would say about the role of the youth in innovation is, one, having this picture of the future that is not about the current problems you're experiencing. Yeah? So just having that mindset that things are going to get better. And then now from there, just looking for ways of fixing issues. And we've seen some youth actually do really well. I think you've seen somewhere on TV a person who did, I don't know, making electricity with, I don't know, something, yeah? There are actually people who are able to go out there and make really good innovative ideas. The other thing I would say, as organizations, it's actually giving them these chances, starting from upskilling them. The gentleman who was sitting there talked about mentoring, yeah? Where you actually adopt a university and tell them your story, and maybe from there they pick innovative ideas to do. I believe a while back when I think this program for Innovate Nairobi was starting, there was this thing about, actually, sorry, I think it's in the manifesto for the excellency, the fact that they are going to start innovative labs in every county. This is going to grow how our youth is actually going to start interacting with innovation, because I don't think in those hubs there's going to be much. They'll need to figure out what to do. Instead of I don't know, social media or playing, I don't know, whatever people do nowadays, the youth do nowadays, just going into these labs. And then now actually us as an organization supporting these hubs that are actually set up by the government. Either, I think someone mentioned like Raspberry and all this, just starting somewhere and encouraging them to innovate because their minds are fresh. They can see the problem, they want to solve things now. So let's create the environment for that. Thank you.
Dr. Charity, anything to add?
I think it's for the youth to be unafraid to dream big. You know, when we talk about the founder of Facebook or Meta, they dropped out of college, but they were in their first and second year of college. And more you hear of people who've started really big stuff when they are young. So I think it's one to put ourselves in the space that we can develop the next biggest solution for the problems that are most important for us. And then the second one is to really invest in themselves so that they're able to have the right skill, mindset to be able to be innovative. The rest is for us to support, but I think that's what the youth can do today.
Don't be afraid to dream. Yes, sir.
So I've remembered the other point. Okay. So the other point was around partnerships, identifying partnerships or leveraging on partnerships. So, for example, the collaboration between academia and industry. So for short-term projects or short-term innovations, there's that we can have students work on this, or we can have graduates work on these solutions. Is the budget allocation that big? Probably not, but is it something that we can take a chance on? Yes, so that we give that. But also now identifying other stakeholders within that ecosystem that would be able to kind of help you think through that budgetary allocation. Now, to go back to your question as far as the youth are concerned, and this is something that is very near and dear to me, is I think it is important to consistently learn and relearn things. And I don't think we say that enough, because when you come in with a fixed mindset, then you will never progress, you will never grow, and there's always the assumption that either the world owes me, or, I mean, I passed with flying colors, why am I not getting a job? So that consistency of knowing that if this is not working the first time, then it's highly likely I'm doing something wrong. I need to go back and check. And I think the other thing that is particularly important is mentorship. Right? We cannot say that enough. And intentional mentorship. You don't need 3 people to mentor. You just need one person, and make sure that that one person has changed. And I think that's what the youth require. But also it's important for the youth to also identify who are they looking at as mentors. And what are the kind of things that they are emulating, and how does this then continuously add value to them?
I want to build to what you're saying, because it's something I sing every day, the ability to learn and relearn. That is actually my breakfast anthem. That's why Kina Naisenya went to Digital Academy. Sikuambia. I was enabling them to unlearn a few things, and look at who she has become. So I cannot agree with you more because I know that works. I've applied it myself, and I can actually say that principle does work. So final question before I can allow the audience to ask 1 or 2 questions, which might include also asking the panel to dance as they close the event for us. So, so final question. So what do you believe are our biggest bets in driving and sustaining an innovation culture to unleash economic opportunities, if I can use the tagline for the event? Biggest bets. What is the 1, 2 things that you think if we do right, we will impact the drift towards enabling that innovation culture in the nation? We can start with Sarah.
One of the biggest things is just creating the environment for it. And here by environment, I mean in terms of funding, in terms of allowing those spaces for innovation to occur, but also creating a reward system for good innovation. Because I think that that is something that we like, but it's almost like a tokenism. So just creating an environment that would allow consistent innovation, recognition of good innovations, and consistent reward of that. But I think the other thing that is most important is making sure that there's a sustainability to that innovation so that it transcends whoever has created it, or it transcends governments, transcends organizations, so that there's that consistent growth within for innovation.
Thank you, Sarah.
I'll write on the question you asked about how do we do this in our homes. And I think that's the first big bet. Actually encouraging people from the home to actually innovate and to be unafraid to fail. And then now for the rest of us who are already grown up, be strong and courageous. As in, just start where you are. It doesn't need to be about your work, but even about your life. The things, just starting with being strong and courageous, and then when you meet Sarah's environment, pop.
Very well said. I think what my biggest bet is just on us as people and the youth that we have and the skills that we can build. For me, that's my biggest bet. If we can develop strong skills, the other two things, we're set for the future.
There you go. Our biggest bet is on people, family, and the willingness to learn and relearn. So, maswali yakuje, thick and fast. Anyone with a question, contribution, input, including asking the panel to dance or to reward you for innovation? Or for looking like you're innovating. I don't know that we have a mic for the gentleman at the end. We love your hair. I would want to believe it's a product of innovation.
Hello, thank
Hello.
you. My name is Michael. I work at the French Embassy. I work with my friend here, Brandon. We're in charge of tech. And it's just a question. You've talked about the ability to learn and relearn, and how mechanistically do you inculcate that in students? Because I know it's easier said than done, and having gone through the 844 system, I know that is not, not many people are able to derive or get that from just the subjects, the multiple subjects we're subjected to, right? Some students are able to pick that up, that, there's this question to ask, as in, how will I use this mathematics I'm using, whatever, right? But there's some people who go deeper and learn about understanding fundamental principles, etc. And when you come to entrepreneurship, that translates into first principles, as Elon Musk frequently says, right? You understand things from first principles, and you can be able to sort through the chaff to get the wheat. So just to the question, how exactly do you inculcate this mindset, right? So that, if it is Python, right, in Moringa, or any other subject that people are learning, that they're just not learning what is on the table at the moment. They're inculcating the fundamental principles, and especially how to be adaptable, learn, relearn, and learn. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll take this one, and then you almost answered yourself. It's how do you inculcate that mindset? And I don't think there's a way that you can be taught how to have a fixed or a growth mindset. Actually, it's a growth mindset, but it's something that you have to intentionally do for yourself. I think the other thing is, are you able to set goals for yourself? Are you living for the moment? Are you YOLOing through life? Or do you have specific goals and objectives that you want to meet? Because then it's those goals and objectives that lead you back to thinking, if this didn't work for me in the first place, then what else do I need to do? The other thing is mentorship, and I'll go back to that. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Are they people who have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? Because I can tell you for sure, if you're living if you're surrounding yourself with people who have a lack mentality and you expect that you're going to have a plenty mentality, it will never work. Because it's what environment are you inculcating around yourself. So it's very important for you to look at those things. So one, what are your objectives? What are your goals? What are you thinking through? What are you seeing at the end of the tunnel for yourself? And then what kind of environment are you surrounding yourself with? Are you able to identify people who will be able to walk that journey with you and keep you accountable? Because that's the one thing that we lack. The discipline comes in terms of accountability. So if I know that for me to succeed in this, I need to either learn a software engineering language or I need to do X, Y, Z, do I have the capacity for it? Or is there another way that I can go around that just to understand the basics so that I am able to know how to run my business or I'm able to learn how to work this thing out? And so what do I need to be able to do to get to that point? So for me, it's have a roadmap for yourself. That roadmap is the one that helps you cultivate that growth mindset on a consistent basis. Surround yourself with the right people, put yourself in the right environment. And putting yourself in the same environment does not mean if you live in Githurai, like me, you have to think like that Githurai person. Who are you interacting with around you? Right? And even in Githurai, you'll find people who have the same mind frame as you. They're looking at success, they're looking at expanding, they're looking at growing themselves. Are you able to identify those people and relate with them? Because they're the ones who encourage you to actually challenge yourself to be better. I hope that answers your question.
I can add?
When you're talking to a 6-year or 7-year-old kid, I completely agree. And of course, I discovered this a bit later in my life, right? Because I did a master's too, so all that was inculcated like a bit later. But when you have a kid 10 years old, right, is there a program that enables them not just to sail through school, but sail while understanding fundamental principles, etc.?
As you add, I think for me the school is parenting. That's it. Because it all starts from home. Again, the environment. So there is no school, there's no one size fits all as far as schools is concerned. There's a school that will teach character and not do anything on academics. There's a school that will teach academics and fail in character. So I think it just starts from the environment where that child is growing. What are you teaching them? What are they watching? Who are they listening to? Right? Because and that's why you find that people who come from abusive backgrounds and they don't become abusive. And there are others within that same family who become abusive. So it's just about that environment. There isn't a school that ideally would 100% teach all of these things.
So what I would add is, first thing is, I think just to add to what she said, like when you make a goal, see it to the end. And once you see it to the end, you need to actually be comfortable to sit with your failure, if there's a failure. And you see now, I think you know this thing of go sit on the corner and think about what you've done wrong. You see that thing? That is actually what you need to do to know how to learn, relearn, and unlearn. Because now as you think about what you've done wrong, then you know how to actually do it better in the future. Yeah? And as you do that, and this is really about reflection, just reflecting about your life. Why is it 21st and your salary is finished? Simple. And then now you know next month, I will plan better, I will budget better. Yeah? And then now, of course, in the innovation space, similarly, maybe this innovation was not good. Just the reflection, introspection of the process we've gone through, what inputs you put, maybe you need to put more inputs, maybe you need to learn a new skill to do this. This is what I would suggest.
Does that respond to your query? Okay. Yes, please.
I think developing a sense of curiosity about things forces you to go and discover or learn about them. And then I think the idea of, in science we call it updating your prior beliefs. It's when you read something new, what does that mean for you? Right? So let's say you read a book about keeping time, or the 7 habits of highly effective people that many of us read, right? I think the part of unlearning, learning, relearning, it's actually sitting and saying, what things do I hold as a strong belief today that must change because of my new information? And I think that calls for the reflection that she's talking about. So being intentional about that you're curious about learning. I think as a society we read a lot. That second part of what changes then, right? What do I have to do different? What does that mean about how I live? And not just personally, but it extends into the rest of, I think that's also something to think about. How do you, that part of, how are you intentional about it? When you learn, how does it assimilate into your previous beliefs? And what does that mean for what you have to let go of, what you have to change? What, you know, you just have to be intentional about it.
Wow. Such a powerful response. I think I'll apply that to my life. The elements of curiosity, the elements of retrospect, and the elements of family. Quite interesting insights. So any other question, query, comment? How come nobody's asking these ladies to dance? Innovation can also be fun. Na tuko na homeboys in the house. Eh?
Hi.
Hello.
So my question is on how do individual companies that you represent, how do you help the student community or the youth community plug into constant innovation such that it's not siloed to each and everyone having their own individual process, such that all of you have a conversation whereby it's having avenues whereby students can help in realizing that innovation. Yeah.
So how are we collaborating to solve the problem on the students and the youth? Are we talking?
So I would start with speak to the person sitting next to you. But anyway, so we do have an engineering community. We've not gotten to the bit of innovations coming from the students at Safaricom, but we started by first partnering with our good friends, IBM. So there is an engineering community. We bring in students from different universities. And over and above that, you have an industry talent program, where this industry talent program is not just Safaricom, but it has a few other tech companies in. And through these two forums, we're able to actually help upskill the students and make you ready to come into the job market. The reason I'm saying Safaricom are not very good with innovation is we still don't have a legal framework to support outside innovations coming in. But it's a work in progress, so maybe one of these days it'll happen. But of course, once it happens, it'll come through the same channels because there's already a community. If we do a hackathon, we'll start there. We won't go to another university to do that. And then, of course, we can add.
Dr. Charity?
Maybe just to highlight, this session is actually a collaboration between the companies that you've seen represented here today. We are together. Yeah, so it's a starting place for us as well, right? In how do we put together even events where all of us come together to impact innovation. Maybe the second one I'd highlight is, for many of us, as she said, there are many intellectual property things that need to be ironed out, but once you come in, then you know, many of the students we hire will work in the innovation projects that we have. Perhaps there's more that we could do, but I think especially for, like, if you're graduating from college, the vast majority of people are actually looking to get a job. So the skills development part is for me, is an integral part of how you build up skills so that we're also innovating at the right level. Because many, especially in tech, you're going to build something that can scale. And I think skills are a really big part of that. So that's something that I think all three of us here are incredibly involved in, and together and separately, etc.
Okay.
So for us, I think I'll speak from a Moringa perspective. What we do is, one, we have career fairs. And within our career fairs, we have hackathons. And not just hackathons, but we also have innovation showcases. So with innovation showcases, what we do is bring students that have projects that they have been working on and expose this to various technical reviewers to come and see what the students have been working on, give them feedback. In the event that it is something that can be built out into a product that can go into market, then we get to connect those organizations with these students so that they're able to mentor them after they're done with their coursework. The other thing that we do is collaborate with organizations in innovation challenges. So we have organizations that come say, look, we are struggling to kind of unlock a specific product or a specific solution. So are we able to kind of get ideas bounced off of our students within specific departments or within specific lines? So those are the kind of things that we do where our students are concerned, just to encourage them to consistently innovate within themselves, peer-to-peer learning, but also within organizations so that they get an industry kind of feedback on the projects that you're working on.
Okay. I guess the last question is from her.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nyakio. I'm a product of Moringa School, a data scientist. My first question is, through the program, we were able to work on projects, as Sha said, but one major thing that we were able to face was on sourcing data and working through the projects. So one thing that we noted was that Kenya in particular, we don't have data that you can be able to work with and be able to solve these solutions that, for example, you have come up with. And one thing that I'd like to point out maybe to anyone here who is maybe in a company, maybe you can look into maybe like releasing your data that is maybe past. You can like generate the data through AI like ChatGPT and be able to like give back to maybe like society and working with community for us to be able to work with the data and build on it, because they always say that that history always repeats itself and you get to learn about your customer like Safaricom through that data. And then another thing is about mentorship. So recently I was in a hackathon, and one thing that I was doing is trying to find a solution in diabetes that is in healthcare, but I actually reached out to a PhD lecturer, and I wanted to develop a model that could be able to predict if someone is able to generate, you can be able to generate an automatic application through machine learning and data that we have. And again, we faced something to do with data resources and also the power of a CPU and being able to work with it. And then another thing is about, now that I've been able to finish Moringa School and I'm in the job market, it's on companies being able to absorb these talents and these skills that you have been able to get. And apparently in Kenya, I hear they have not yet defined these roles, and you cannot be able to maybe like go and look for work and be able to like do a particular role like Google and Microsoft who are established, and be able to have these skills that you have and work with them. So maybe as maybe we are progressing as a country and as Africa, we can maybe also relook into actually defining these roles, and as well as being able to digest these young talents into these particular roles. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So do you want to react very quickly to her concerns? So number one is, what is our data sharing model? Do we have a policy on that? Are we ready for the digital talent and what we are doing about it?
There's something called open data. Did you come in contact with that?
We've actually been sourcing data, but there was no particular data that was directly towards Africa, like we can use it to bring it back home. So the main challenge was being able to come up with something that we can bring it back home. Everything that we find is always about the US, the UK, and whatever. So there's nothing we can be able to use and directly absorb it into our people. Sisi sasa, you're getting? Yeah.
And if it is Africa, it is South Africa. And South Africa is not Africa.
Yeah, so I'm not very good with the data things, but I know there is something called open data, and I think the Kenyan government also has open data, and it's available. I don't know, maybe we can chat number 10. This is the first thing. The next thing is we are very big on data privacy. So that bit actually really, what is it called, stops us from sharing data. But you mentioned data about CPU usage. This is data we are able to release out there, but we don't have structures to protect ourselves as Safaricom to release data. So maybe this is something we need to look at. And you're right, this is the next ChatGPT for Kenya, because this is information that can be used to figure out how to run more efficient data centers. So apologies, but sina answer here. The other one about data scientists, still talk to the lady on your right. On your right, yes. We do have data scientist roles in Safaricom. Yeah, we do.
Maybe to comment on the data accessibility question, in addition to not having structures to share, there are also very strict regulations, even here, about when you acquire data, who can you share it with, under what circumstances, for what use. One of the examples of the big laws that many African countries are taking is called GDPR. It's by the EU. It's so strict that you can collect the data. When you're collecting, you have to tell the data subjects or who you got the data from what you're going to use it for. If you have the data in your possession and you want to use it for a different purpose, you can't do it. So it's that strict, right? So when it comes especially to personal data, it's quite strict. And so I think what many organizations are now doing is one, either you create your own applications that can start to help you collect some data that you can use. The second development that's actually really nice, and we're in the middle of it, is this idea of foundation models. So the idea of foundation models is that you can get a pre-trained model that's from anywhere, and then you need some situations. I think they're showing examples where when you now want to fine-tune it for your specific application, you need up to 100x less amount of data for you to be able to fine-tune and see good results for your specific applications. And I think that's where we're going to benefit as a continent, where there'll be all these open pre-trained models that have used South Africa data from the EU everywhere, and then we can now just have to collect a small bit of data that helps you to make your model work and your prediction. So that's one way, but the data regulatory environment is quite strict. On talent, I think you've been already given someone to talk to, but I think of it as just a nascent role that has a lot of potential. And so part of being positioned and doing things is you're in the right space. I think more and more organizations are starting to see the benefit of, one, using data for making decisions, and two, being able to go beyond statistics and Excel sheets. So I think there's opportunities, but it is taking a bit of time to completely pick up, and the organizations that are way ahead obviously benefit from it. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think? How did the panel do? Acheni kuboeka. It's 6 p.m. The cocktail is about to start, courtesy of Naisenya, of course. How did the panel do? Do they deserve a resounding hand clap? So Thank you so much, ladies, for your commitment, for your energy, and for your passion towards the specific topic that we handled today. For the audience, asanteni sana. I know it's late. Kuna traffic. I hope nobody is here because there is traffic. But thank you very much for being attentive, for asking very insightful questions. Yes, we have a lot of data scientist jobs. In fact, data science is one of the hottest skill sets that we are looking for across the market. I was having a conversation with the head of recruitment for NCBA. They're looking for data scientists. Again, maybe it goes back to... Mulikuwa huko? Okay, tuonane nyuma ya hiyo tent ya NF, the orange tent. We'll see how we can get you the 5 years experience in 1 month, and then you can position that. But yes, the jobs are there. I guess it's how you acquire experience so that you can position yourself better. And as Yvonne said, it's how you build employability, not job security. And I like your question on sharing data. Maybe that's one of the areas you should start thinking about. How do you want to do it? You, no, not these ones. You, yeah, what's your accountability towards that? Because it's quite an exciting journey if you can unlock it. But asanteni sana for the active participation, for the listening. I'll leave you with a very short quote that says, when the wind blows, some people will build walls and some people will build windmills. What are you building? Are you building walls or are you building windmills? And the final element that says we need to start viewing innovation as a change that offers possibilities, not threats. I remember there's something she said when the generative AI showed up, she was scared stiff. And of course, any change will scare you. But we need to get to a point where we are looking at change as a possibility for the future, but not to threaten or to cause any damage. And ideally, nobody will ever replace your human impact. What we need to do is to see how do we create synergies between technology and human, because that's where the balance is and that's where the magic is. So asanteni sana. A cocktail is served behind you. That's a joke. So I guess we can call it a day. I hope you have enjoyed the rest of the event for the entire day. I don't know what's the schedule after this. Naisanya?
Let's clap for the panel.
Thank you very much. The future is female. Our president is here. I thought there was a shortcut here.
There is no shortcut. Mary unapenda shortcut kwa nini? As Mary has said, and I want to reiterate, the future is female. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for listening and being attentive for the past, I think, 3 hours. It's been a long day from 8 a.m. to now, I think, almost 6 p.m. We have ongoing sessions for the rest of the week, from tomorrow to Friday, so kindly come, listen, learn, ask questions. I think it has been a very interactive session, and key learnings from today is human-centric design. Let's focus on creating solutions not based on technology, as Dr. Njeri said, but based on what us as humans we can actually use. And then the other key element is there is no free lunch. So before we ask for actually free things, let's start thinking, how is our data being used? And that actually goes to the third point, that cybersecurity and your data privacy is your personal responsibility. So let's own that. And as we work towards a Kenya that we are all proud of, I have a question for the audience. What is the common thing, except Dr. Charity, don't answer this question. What is the common thing between Google, Microsoft, and IBM? What's that one common thing? Yes? Their CEOs are of what descent? Indian, right? So the Indian people are known for their high education qualifications, humility, resilience. are these things that as Kenyans we have, we don't have those qualities? See, we have. With a population of 1 billion against Kenya's population of 53 million, their Global Innovation Index for 2022 was 40th in the world, and that of Kenya was around 88. So as we work towards a digital economy, let's remember that everything that we need as a people for us to be the next big thing, we already have as a people, as a country. So thank you so much. Have a lovely day, and God bless you, and God bless Kenya.